Chapter 1378. It was a hyperspace restraining device used to restrict kings, a secret room carriage. High-density rhenium gold filled the generator room, and 8 magnetic field components designed by the handsome Jack surrounded Emperor Slayer, restricting him to the center of the secret room. At this moment, Emperor Slayer had already inserted his true lumen back into his neck. He floated in the air with his legs crossed. His body had gradually adapted to the frequency of the magnetic field, but it was still very difficult to break free. The secret room itself did not have any loopholes to exploit. His heart was as still as water. In the few days that Emperor Slayer had been imprisoned, he had already eliminated all his anger, impatience, and other emotions and returned to his original state of mind. He had also thrown the unfinished mission and the upcoming war to the back of his mind. He focused on himself and carried out a deep self-reflection. Just now, when the carriage was separated from the train, Emperor Slayer felt a slight energy fluctuation due to the switching of the power supply. Why would a device that had never fluctuated in stability suddenly produce such a large energy fluctuation? There must have been a change in the outside world. This was the opportunity that Emperor Slayer had been waiting for. Draw the sword. He opened up his domain and stared at the powerful restrictive force as he slowly pulled the sword out of his neck. Traces of strange sin power were seeping out from different parts of his body. The strange bandages used to cover his body also slowly came off. Emperor Slayer, who had finished drawing his sword, did not immediately attack. Instead, he was preparing something. A move that he had not used before was about to be used. After all, a normal attack was enough to kill Han Dong and the others. There was no need to use this kind of move, which required time to prepare and did not necessarily have a high hit rate on low-level life forms. A terrifying scene occurred. The sound of bones cracking could be heard. The cervical vertebrae in the neck extended upward, and the bone cells underwent rapid differentiation and division, constructing an exquisite skull. With the skull as the frame, sin threads began to weave the flesh and tissues of the face like blood vessels. The bandages covered the surface of the body like skin. A complete head formed on Emperor Slayer's head. Soft black hair fell to the side of the ears. Even though the entire body was covered in bandages, one could vaguely imagine the extraordinary appearance of the past through the contours of the face and black hair. Head. This was the first time Emperor Slayer had revealed her head, and a never-before-seen artistic conception covered the blade. Emperor Slayer had originally planned to use this trump card against enemy kings. He had never thought that he would use it here. Furthermore, sacrificing the head also meant that Emperor Slayer would have to face the deepest sin in his heart. If his state of mind was not up to par, he would suffer from chi deviation. Once he succeeded, his state of mind would rise to an unprecedented height. Chop. At this moment, the feeling of wielding the saber was completely different from before. The restrictions and restraints became like a few ordinary and unobstructed threads, no longer restricting Emperor Slayer. 1. The secret chamber was cut horizontally. The carriage carrying the secret chamber was moving quickly on the track leading to the edge of the planet. There were no enemies around. The Emperor Slayer turned into a sinful shadow and disappeared from the carriage. She was not in a hurry to rush to the battlefield. Instead, he found a hidden underground cave and placed the true path of flowing light between his palms, beginning to nurture it. While he was imprisoned in the secret room, the energy in Emperor Slayer's body was slowly being depleted. Her last move, forcefully cutting open the secret room, had exhausted almost all of her strength. This was also the fundamental reason why she had to choose a special time to break open the secret room. Energy depleted. Emperor Slayer's comprehensive attributes would be weakened by more than 80%. If he was besieged by multiple mythical bodies, he might be in danger. After recovering for a while, Emperor Slayer immediately found the nearest world network interface and contacted the mother body. "Give me half an hour," I will rush back to the battlefield in time. Well, everything is going according to plan. Emperor Slayer, your return will allow our victory rate to exceed 70%. The mother body did not ask what had happened during this period of time. As long as Emperor Slayer could return to the battlefield in time, nothing mattered. Emperor Slayer herself had also gained enlightenment due to this failure, and the state of slaying had become even more superior than before. The west gate of London was a few thousand meters away. The cuboid structure of Markham's city, which was floating in midair, had taken the initiative to expose the barrel structure of the positron cannon. A type of annihilating positron energy had completed the compression and acceleration between the barrels. Whoosh! The beam that symbolized annihilation shot straight at London. The mother body had simulated the effect of London's destruction in advance. Who knew, just as the positron beam shot out, the gates of London opened inwards at the same time, ready to receive the bombardment. An ancient and esoteric device was set up inside the city gate. It was built with pieces of floating stone tablets engraved with void characters as its outer frame. The center was a mirror structure in the form of a liquid. It was the void prism that was temporarily modified by the plane migration device. The members of the secret cult of the void under the second origin Pop Menda were surrounding the base of the prism's stone platform, using a secret ritual to precisely control the prism. Not only could this device change the trajectory of matter, but it could even refract at a precise angle. If used properly, they might be able to directly shoot down the enemy's main city. What would happen next would be a direct clash between advanced technology and hybrid demon secret techniques. The moment the positron beam collided with the void prism, a total of 6 instructors were annihilated on the spot due to the influence of the connection. Of course, Pop had already considered this and immediately sent backup personnel forward to replace them. I didn't expect the bombardment to be even more powerful this time. It might be a little difficult to accurately refract the beam. It'll be fine as long as we can touch it. We must make the enemy think that we can't use this terrifying weapon. As the positron beam completely entered the prism, Pop personally descended and used the astral brain to control the thoughts of all the members of the secret cult, personally controlling the refraction direction. Buzz! A beam of the same power shot out from the mirror in reverse, and it could probably hit the upper right corner of the enemy's main city. Just as it was about to hit, Markham's city suddenly released an extremely powerful magnetic field pulse, and it changed the trajectory of the positron beam, forcing it to shoot into the deep space of the universe. The first exchange between the two sides ended in this form of fireworks. The most shocked was the mother. She didn't expect the enemy to have such a method. The positron cannon can ignore the obstruction of space. I didn't expect the enemy to be proficient in such a profound space technique, and to create a device that can perfectly deal with the positron cannon in such a short time. What a pity, otherwise this cannon would be enough to destroy London. From the beginning, we didn't intend to use technology to determine the winner. I'll go first. Blacksmith, come with me. Let's see what the enemy's king is capable of. Suddenly, an indescribable heavy pressure spread out in this area. The residents of London who weren't at the level of mythical entity began to tremble, and their thoughts froze. Many residents even knelt on the ground. This kind of pressure didn't only affect the body, but also the soul and consciousness. The enslaved mad dragon also let out a wail at this moment, lowering its head as if it was afraid of something. It covered the sky. The shadow replaced the former sun, and the city of London returned to darkness. However, the residents of the city didn't feel relieved at all after getting rid of the scorching sun. Instead, there was extreme fear in their eyes in the sky. With a body length of tens of thousands of meters, or even hundreds of thousands of meters, and a perfect combination of black dragon scales and metal armor, a colossus beyond the knowledge of most residents was overlooking the tiny city of London. Teplonadrilis, father of the black dragon. Chapter 1379. Perception. Any individual with the characteristic of leveling up would more or less increase their perception during the leveling up period. For a king who had merged with the truth and formed a world of his own, his perception could often cover a part of the world and easily obtain the information he wanted. Toplo, the father of the black dragon, had a pair of dragon eyes that could see the truth. When he looked down at the earth with his huge body, he could see all the surface information of the world. He could see all the life forms suppressed by the dragon bloodline. When he looked down at London, a trace of doubt flashed in his dragon eyes. Sam Mir has been completely devoured by madness? What a pity! Another part of the bloodline of the mountain dragon will be lost. I didn't expect that there were several humans in this city with dragon bloodline. Most of them have a lot of impurities, but a small part of them have extremely pure bloodline. It's incredible. If the war can end smoothly, I'll try to bring them back as prisoners of war for research. Speaking of which, why did I only capture 2 kings? One of them only has the strength and doesn't have the status of a king. In addition, there are several mythical bodies in the city that are infinitely close to the king level. It's strange. According to the rules of balance, the number of kings should be equal, right? Blacksmith, how's your observation on this side? Blacksmith 3, Fong B. Kryman, Titan, was standing upright on the dragon's spine. His body was covered with iron rings at equal intervals. His face was similar to Count's, and his mouth and nose were covered by a mask. Blacksmith's perception was not through his facial features but through his sense of touch. The iron rings worn all over his body could spread his sense of touch without loss. It could even spread his perception through the iron in the environment without limit, similar to mesh. At present, Blacksmith used the iron scales on the black dragon's body to easily radiate his sense of touch to the entire city of London. The perception information he received was the same as the black dragon. Although there were many mythical bodies in London, there were only 2 who had reached the level of king. The overall strength was even less than theirs, maybe even half of theirs. As Blacksmith and the Black Dragon checked the information, they immediately came to a conclusion. Half of the enemy's forces are active outside the city. What are these hybrid demons thinking? Not all of them are in the city at this time. Did they find out the original location of Maximus City and send half of their forces to secretly attack it? Haha, this is getting interesting. Or had they already given up on this battle, and were prepared to sacrifice half of their forces to fight to the death here, to buy enough time for the other half to find space equipment in other parts of the planet to escape from the world? They actually gave us such a great opportunity. Hurry up and inform the mother so that we can wipe them out in one fell swoop. It's too easy. I thought it would be troublesome at first. The blacksmith confidently gave his opinion. The hybrid demons will never give up on the battle. It's very likely to be the first point you mentioned. They arranged half of their forces to try to secretly attack the original site of Markmes. Unfortunately, I can combine with the technology of the mother to achieve a mobile city. I've already used your scales to scan the surrounding 50 kilometers. I didn't find any hybrid demons hiding under the sand. Now was indeed the best time to attack. Since they only have 2 kings in the city, there's no need to wait for them to kill the emperor. Even though the situation in front of him seemed to be extremely advantageous, the blacksmith still had a serious expression on his face. In his opinion, even if there was a gap in the hybrid demon army, they still had to take every step carefully. Using the communication between the metals, the blacksmith informed the mother of the information. Markmes City, which was still floating in the air, shot out 12 crystal pillars that were about 100 meters tall from the metal surface. They were similar to the dial of a clock and landed on the outskirts of London. Space crystal. This was a good item that the blacksmith brought from the Saint-level world. It was a portable space item that could carry a large number of life forms. The life forms in Markme's city only needed to walk through the teleportation door marked 0112, and they would be accurately teleported to the location of the corresponding space crystal. The crystal resonated, and the words from the saint-level world appeared on the surface. The crystal was activated. Light pillars of individual size continuously descended around the crystal. Giant dragons, sinful spirits, blacksmiths, and artificial intelligence life forms. There was an extremely strong aura around each crystal, and there was at least one mythical body guarding it. One of them was the sinful spirit that Han Dong and the others had met in the hybrid demon world, Thousand Sins. Night Monarch. In the blink of an eye, the forces of the four worlds had completely surrounded London. Markme's city was equipped with a self-defense system, so there was no need to leave any forces inside. It only needed a small portion of the mother's CPU to be used for intelligent calculations. The life forms from the four worlds had perfectly integrated some of the characteristics of the other worlds after several months of deep interaction. For example, the skeletal body of a sinful spirit had been purified and modified by a blacksmith. Its bones had become stronger and more efficient in transporting energy. Its body was also equipped with an all-metal intelligent armor. However, there was one thing that was very strange. Looking at the enemy forces that had descended on the outskirts of London, none of them had reached the level of a king. The king that was exposed now was still the black dragon that covered the sky and the blacksmith on the dragon's back. London, Big Ben, as the headquarters of the Church of Evernight. This was also an extremely important command tower during the battle. After the expeditionary army moved into London, the great demon captain had contributed the Eye of Expedition that was used to contact the Holy City and detect long-distance intelligence during the march. It was perfectly combined with the detection device inside Big Ben. When the magnetic storm had completely stopped, it could accurately capture the details of the situation within 50 kilometers of London. The large-scale enemy's information had all been captured by the Eye of Expedition. Then, through the dark message, it was known to the garrison troops in different areas, and the fastest deployment of troops was carried out. However, there was one thing that made everyone very puzzled. The information that Han Dong brought back only said that one king was trapped. Why didn't the other one appear? Could it be that he is hiding in the metal main city and preparing for the next bombardment? It's very strange, there is no longer any protective barrier in London. Based on their perception, they should be able to accurately capture our specific situation. They should be very clear that we are currently lacking in military strength and only have two kings. Logically speaking, they should immediately mobilize all their forces to launch a destructive attack on us. The great demon captain's eyes were closed at this moment. He was using a special method to connect with the Eye of Expedition. He carefully observed the army that was besieging the city. He could vaguely see something and said in a low voice, "You're right. The enemy will definitely press on with all their forces and try to flatten London in one fell swoop. Their bombardment has been successfully blocked by us, and the energy required to accumulate such a powerful bombardment is not something that can be achieved in a short period of time. The third king might have used a special method that we have never seen before to blend into the army that is besieging the city, or he might be hiding in a location that we don't know about." At this moment, an even stronger pressure than before descended from the sky. Let me test this group of hybrid demons first. Black shadows, lava, and at the same time, an indescribable energy was contained. A black dragon claw that was like a demonic mountain descended vertically. It wasn't just a matter of the heavy pressure. There was a type of dragon energy that symbolized destruction flowing between the dragon scales, and it worked together with the blacksmith's destruction armor. During the suppression, there was also an extremely destructive destruction impact. At the same time, the Thames River in London began to become restless. Chapter 1380. The black dragon claw descending from the sky was like a demonic mountain flowing with hot lava. The first thing the dragon claw would destroy was not the city of London, but the mythical celestial body that was suspended in mid-air as a temporary satellite. It belonged to the 10th Prime, Vader cousins. Vader and a large group of hybrid demons from the outer sky were living in the celestial body, secretly carrying out a plan. In the face of the terrifying dragon claw that was about to come, they could barely block it by sacrificing all the energy of the celestial body and activating the defensive fortifications. Therefore, it would consume a large amount of energy and force the hybrid demon industry inside the celestial body to stop operating. Vader, hurry up and make a decision. It'll be too late if you delay. The opponent is a king with destructive abilities. The voice of the mythical celestial body echoed in the ears of the red-haired youth, and the mini celestial body in his chest was spinning rapidly. We are an indispensable part of the battle plan. Wait a little longer. Vader stared at the dragon claw that was constantly descending, resisting all the pressure. What he saw was a long-term battle plan, and he did not order the activation of the celestial body's defensive barrier. The forces under his command were also safe and unafraid of death as they silently watched the descending dragon claw. At the critical moment, London Thames River. The originally clear river water was completely dyed black in an instant, and it was even bubbling like boiling water. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. One after another, swollen tentacles with a diameter of more than 10 meters grew wildly from the surface of the lake. The surface of the black, oily tentacles was faintly imprinted with dark characters that symbolized some ancient sacrifice. Before the mythical celestial body was about to be destroyed. A total of more than 80 thick dark tentacles wrapped around the dragon claw. Buzz. For a moment, a circle of black ripples visible to the naked eye spread out in the air, and the dragon claw was forcibly stopped. Sizzle. At the same time, the contact between the two caused a large amount of steam to rise. The moment the 7 black tentacles came into contact with the dragon claw, more than half of them evaporated, or rather, they were annihilated by the stimulation of destructive energy. Terrifying lava with a temperature of more than 10,000 degrees flowed from the severed tentacles. However, the black dragon was not feeling well either. The dragon scales that had been personally strengthened by Blacksmith III were still forcibly torn off by the tentacles. The pain was like tearing off a fingernail. Most importantly, the maggot-like dark tentacles would drill further into the flesh, wantonly releasing extremely destructive and corrosive dark mysterious energy in the claw. Huh? The pain was mixed with a numbing sensation that made the black dragon elder shudder. This strange feeling that he had never experienced before made him decisively give up on this attack. Whoosh! He tore apart 2 more tentacles and forcefully retracted his dragon claws. The scene before him made Black Dragon sweat profusely. Just now, because the dragon claw was intertwined with a large number of tentacles, he could not see it clearly. When the dragon claw retracted in front of his eyes, he could directly see that the part where the dragon scales were removed had dozens of large and small holes drilled out. A foul, black, and viscous liquid kept flowing out of the wound. There were even a few broken tentacles stuck in it. This is the characteristic of the hybrid demons. If it weren't for the fact that I have the dragon vein origin flowing in my body, I'm afraid that this kind of internal corrosion wouldn't be able to be suppressed and would spread to other areas in a short period of time. As expected of a creature from World S-01 that was not under the control of the Black Tower. Blacksmith, help me. Following the Black Dragon's call, a steady figure flashed and appeared where the dragon claw was. He moved his fingers, and the tentacle stuck in his wound instantly shattered. A hammer appeared in the blacksmith's hand, and after a casual knock on the wound, brand new and stronger black iron dragon scales covered the wound in all directions. Blacksmith, this living planet above London seems to have more than just a detection function. Let's work together to destroy it. It's indeed very suspicious. Black Dragon Teplo was slightly afraid of the swaying dark tentacles below. He no longer used his claws to attack, and instead turned his dragon head to face London directly below. Dragon Descendant World, once the most awe-inspiring and largest volcano in the world, the Eye of Destruction. More than 2,000 years ago, it was forcibly swallowed by a mythical black dragon and fused into a part of its body. It also took this opportunity to raise the destruction attribute inside the dragon's body to the next level, reaching the apex and touching the barrier of the king level. In the center of Teplo's Dragon Belly continent sat this terrifying volcano. Currently, under the stimulation of Teplo, it was in a state of eruption, linking together with all the volcanoes in the Dragon Belly continent to erupt on a super scale. A destructive dragon breath that was enough to destroy a medium-sized world was constantly accumulating. At the same time as feeling this terrifying energy, the tentacles rising from the Thames began to hover and condense in the air, combining into a mass of black flesh. Whoosh! A terrifying sharp claw crawled out from the mass of flesh. A humanoid figure that looked like a mother crawled out from the mass of flesh. Its face had no facial structure, but it was covered with dense tiny tentacles. Its slender right arm was stretched out in front of it. The tentacles that drilled out of the arm formed ancient characters, and at the same time, black spots of light appeared in the palm of its hand. Such a small arm against a giant dragon head that was comparable to the size of London. Die, worm! Destroy the world. A world dragon breath surrounded by crimson lightning, super hot lava, and a destructive beam of light spewed out. Corresponding dark particles combined into a black ball of light and shot out a tiny black beam of light. The visual effects and coverage of the two energies were not on the same level. However, when the two collided, the black beam of light spread out like a disk at the point of impact, and its width was exactly the same as the dragon breath. For a moment, the impact between the two was actually on par. Just as Black Dragon Teplo continued to breathe out in shock, a relatively low-key figure jumped down from his body. The hammer in his hand was aimed at the mythical celestial body below. Blacksmith Fong B. Kryman III was very confident that he could kill this celestial body in one hit if the other party was unprepared. However, when the distance was less than 100 meters, the blacksmith's eyes suddenly changed, and he quickly put the hammer back into his body while changing the trajectory of his fall. Clang! With the trembling of the iron rings all over his body, he landed steadily in another area of the celestial body. An uninvited guest was standing where he was originally going to land. White gelatinous skin without a mouth structure, a pair of deep eyes were staring at the blacksmith, and his aura was even slightly superior. The newcomer was the Great Demon Captain. The blacksmith had already observed the external information of the newcomer through metal detection. An individual who doesn't have the qualifications for the throne but has a king-level force. Are you human? The Great Demon Captain didn't answer. Instead, he turned into a white shadow and instantly flashed in front of the blacksmith. This process didn't even feel like there was any time interval. Hyperspace movement. So fast. The blacksmith was so shocked that he didn't even have time to spread out his domain. The white palm had already clasped his head. Wisps of white energy were gathering in the palm. Boom! Boom! A white flash comparable to a nuclear explosion bloomed on the surface of the celestial body, and the mythical celestial body was deflected to a certain extent. The blacksmith, with white smoke all over his body, flew out of the explosion smoke and hit the city building below at supersonic speed. Boom! When he landed, he smashed open a terrifying deep pit about 100 meters wide. However, the blacksmith maintained a posture of tilting his head back and body backward, standing steadily in the big pit. Although his head was still emitting white smoke, his essence wasn't damaged. You're really strong. It's indeed very difficult to defeat you in a direct confrontation. However, the two of you, the remaining kings of London, have appeared to deal with me and the Black Dragon. How do you solve the siege situation?" As soon as he finished speaking, a loud noise suddenly came from the north wall of London. The wall collapsed. In just 10 minutes, one of the walls had been breached. Chapter 1381. North City Wall. It was originally guarded by the Church of Evernight's branch manager, Elambeth. The first wave of enemy troops didn't include mythical bodies. Elambeth was full of confidence. Using the geographical advantage provided by the city wall, he united all the strength of the church and used black magic to bombard the troops attacking from outside the city. It was very effective at first, but soon, he noticed something amiss. There was a strange mechanical body that took all the magic damage. No matter what kind of attack it was, even when an instructor sacrificed himself to grow a huge tentacle from his abdomen to attack it, it remained unmoved. It went straight to the bottom of the city wall. The next second there was a huge explosion that shocked the entire city. The North City Gate that could withstand the impact of a mythical was blown to pieces, and the 100-meter-tall city wall structure collapsed. In the ruins filled with smoke, Elambeth, who was still in shock, wanted to inform headquarters of the intelligence. The next second, his head and body were completely annihilated, leaving only 2 legs twitching on the ground before finally turning into a pool of black water. Church of Evernight. Headquarters. When Father Lessos observed the situation in the north through the eye of London, he was affected by a magnetic field that prevented him from seeing the exact situation. The war had just begun. Apart from the king-level battle that erupted in the sky, the siege had just launched its first wave of attack. The enemy's mythical bodies stationed in the space crystal had yet to take action. Lessos didn't understand why the North Gate had been breached. Could it be that the great demon's speculation was correct? There's a king acting in secret through a disguise technique that we can't identify? That's the only possibility. Otherwise, the city gate wouldn't have been breached in just a few minutes. We have to discover and understand this king's abilities. Otherwise, it's almost impossible for us to hold out in a conservative state until reinforcements arrive. Taking the next step ahead of time might cause us to lose everything. Someone has to fill in the gaps here. The priest, who had always been calm, changed the umbrella in his hand into a walking stick and prepared to personally investigate the situation. Suddenly, a distorted vortex that didn't belong to the hybrid demon world appeared in the darkness. A man wearing a linen hood, and all his joints were twisted. The tattered gloves on his hands were very conspicuous. This person was the Mantis Demon who had completed the ascension with Han Dong and the others in the previous London game. He had touched the miracle of the whirlpool and successfully entered the mythical body. He was the strongest warrior under Father Lessos. Her real name had been discarded and she was given the code name Az. He was extremely loyal to the hybrid demons, or more accurately, he was absolutely loyal to the priest. He was once the champion of London's kickboxing. Later, he became a homicidal maniac due to his thirst for blood. In the end, he was redeemed in front of the priest. Even if the whirlpool attribute of the saint-level world completely changed his nature as a hybrid demon, his heart still belonged here. The brainwashing effect of the miracle had no effect on his loyalty. Z's absolute loyalty was also one of the main reasons why the saint-ranked world suffered such a crushing defeat. He thought that he could turn the hybrid demons into his own, but who would have thought that he would just be giving them a huge gift? Father, let me investigate this matter. Even if I die, I will bring back valuable information. You are the key to this battle. Please stay here. The priest nodded in affirmation. His tongue carried a special black candle and delivered it to Big Z. Lighting the candle at a critical moment might save your life. Thank you, Father. The moment he took the candle, whoosh, leaving only a spiral footprint on the ground, Big Z rushed to the North City Gate as fast as he could. With the help of the mythical structure realized by the Whirlpool God, the quality was not low at all. The priest even had the idea of cultivating Big Z into the leader of a special force to further expand the scale of power in London. Domain expansion, realm of reincarnation. In the area where Big Z set foot, all the surrounding matter, even the most basic air, would be in a distorted state. It was even beyond the distortion of the conventional material plane. It could touch the flow of matter and carry out a certain degree of distortion on time. Its strength was not weak at all. An afterimage flashed. Big Z had already appeared in the ruins full of broken pieces of the city wall. There were no living creatures as far as his eyes could see. He did not even see many physical bodies. Most of them were some personal belongings that had fallen inside. Their bodies seemed to have evaporated. Big Z's current vision was a little similar to Han Dong's magic eye. The spiral effect brought by the whirlpool could strengthen the vision of focusing on a certain point to the extreme. The place where his eyes locked on, there was a flash of metallic luster. Whoosh! The extremely distorted soles of his feet made a super-fast turn. His agile steps allowed him to instantly approach the object observed by his eyes. What is this? Standing in front of him was a broken mechanical body. All kinds of cables were dragged on the ground. Even the right arm was almost detached from the body, hanging in the air by a cable. Drip, 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 drip. Similar to human blood, engine oil was constantly overflowing from the broken mechanical body. The metal parts embedded in the body were slowly falling off. Even so, it was still holding a mantis head that had just been plucked out in its hand and easily crushed it. At first glance, the broken state of the mechanical life seemed to be caused by a great battle. Upon closer inspection, one would find that the mechanical life itself was disintegrating. Even some parts that seemed to be intact would disintegrate on their own, and the metal pipes that were still connected would automatically break off. It was more like a kind of overload performance. It felt Big Z's arrival. Click, click, click. The mechanical life had already turned its broken head 180 degrees in an extremely exaggerated manner. Engine oil kept flowing out from the broken eye holes, and there were a few wires with electric arcs jumping in its mouth. An intermittent electromagnetic sound came out from his mouth. Saint level? No, your body is a mixture of mantis and saint level attribute. How strange! Your existence may mislead our soldiers, so you must be eliminated. The mechanical life that looked like it had problems even walking spat out extremely terrifying laser beams from its mouth. Everything in its path was annihilated. Big Z's domain was completely ineffective. He could only rely on his body to forcefully dodge. He couldn't completely avoid it. Half of his arm was exposed to the beam and was instantly annihilated. King level. And it's very strong. The burlap bag on Big Z's head was twisted into a ball. He wanted to retreat at full speed and report to the priest at the same time. Buzz. An invisible domain had already spread over. The surrounding scene did not change at all. In his brain, a prohibition sign similar to a system program, banned, appeared in his consciousness. It was like a prohibition program was forcibly implanted in Big Z's brain, prohibiting him from doing anything related to escape or transmitting information. Whether it was directly or indirectly related, it would be prohibited. What ability is this? The mechanical life had already raised its right arm. A mass of annihilation energy was accumulated in its palm. It was completely locked on, and there was no way to dodge. At the moment of life and death, Big Z's loyalty far exceeded his fear of death. Even if he was going to die here, he would still cause damage to the other party. Time distortion. Since the domain was ineffective against machines, it used the domain on itself. It provided an acceleration effect on the time that distorted itself. A rapidly twisting spiral palm hit the surface of the mechanical life before the energy shot out. Clang. Clang. Mechanical fragments flew everywhere. The annihilation energy that was about to shoot out from the palm stopped because of the collapse of the mechanical life. Staring at the flowing oil and completely broken mechanical debris on the ground, Big Z could not understand what was going on for a moment. He definitely thought that his attack had killed the target. It was that the attack just now had exceeded the limit of what the machine could withstand. In his shock, he hurriedly sent the information back to Father Lessos. However, not long after, an annihilation explosion similar to the one at the north gate occurred on the southwest side of the city wall. The city wall was destroyed again. A similar invasion occurred again. The mechanical life disintegrated due to overload. It looks very weak, but it has king-level strength. Could it be? A terrifying conclusion appeared in Big Z's mind. Father Lessos also came to the same conclusion. This is troublesome. Chapter 1382. When Big Z rushed back to the headquarters, he still had lingering fears. Although he had stepped into the mythical stage and his quality was not bad, he was only at the early stage of the mythical stage. He was far from Father Lessos. It was already very good to be able to survive in such a situation. Whoosh! The priest pulled out the antennae inserted into the back of Big Z's head. Through the clear memory sharing, he had obtained a definite conclusion and dug out the secret of the enemy's third king. However, even if such a secret was exposed, it would be difficult for London to deal with it in its current state. It was an ability that was close to cheating. Looking at the entire hybrid demon circle, there might be similar ones, but it was impossible to find one that was completely the same. It was directly related to the other party's characteristics. There is actually such a troublesome existence. It can directly attach itself to the body of the air without reducing its level. Although it will make the body of the air far exceed the limit of its load and completely disintegrate and die after a period of time, the number of mechanical airs is in the tens of thousands, and it is still increasing. There are new mechanical life forms descending near the teleportation crystal every moment. It is as if there is a set of specialized mechanical production lines in Markmas City. Consciousness descending? Big Z asked. The principle is different. This should be a unique system of this kind of mechanical life form. This way we can't prevent it no matter what. The only way to deal with it is to find the king's body and interfere. The king's body is most likely hidden in their main city, Markmas. We don't have the strength to attack it at all. There is only one way: to reduce unnecessary casualties. Father Lessos made a decisive decision. Through the churches that were scattered in different neighborhoods and the important teachers who were connected to their consciousnesses, he conveyed an important order. Abandon the city wall defense line and enter the next stage in advance. Sir Father, this. If we continue to defend, we will only be annihilated by the king one by one. The important city wall structure will also be completely destroyed. Now we can only hope that the troops out will hurry back and make up for the time difference. Z, who was wearing a linen hood, gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, "Will the reinforcements really help? Are reinforcements really useful? The kings in this group of humans only have the strength close to the king, but they don't have the throne themselves. Every single one of these otherworld kings had the support of the throne, and they were definitely the best of the best that had been carefully selected. Can we really fight them? Do your own thing, Z. The humans who came to London this time are very strong. You just haven't seen them yet." "Yes." Seeing that the priest's expression had turned sour, Z did not say anything else and immediately headed to the nearest street to prepare for the next phase of the battle. 1,000 meters in the air, the dark tentacles were intertwining with the giant dragon. The unbridled dark energy almost dyed the sky black. The dragon's breath that had been scattered by the darkness turned into dark rocks that fell onto the streets one after another. On the other side, Blacksmith III, who was struck down by the great demon captain, only leaned back and smoke came out of his head. He was completely fine. It could be seen that his defense was extremely outstanding. Compared to the Black Dragon, the blacksmith, who had been defeated before, was very cautious when dealing with the hybrid demons. He wasn't angry at being hit by the great demon captain at all. Instead, he used the large, open pit beneath him to forge with the blacksmith's hammer in his hand. Ding! The great demon only heard the sound of metal being forged once. On the surface of the 100-meter-wide pit, a dome-shaped metal chamber was instantly built, completely isolated from the outside world. The blacksmith himself was completely hidden inside. It was entirely possible that the blacksmith was hiding in the secret chamber and using his hammer to destroy the foundations of London. This forced the great demon to enter the secret room. Boom! The moment he entered, the iron door closed. The blacksmith's domain was combined with the dome-shaped secret chamber, creating an absolutely enclosed steel space. The blacksmith's idea was very simple. Since there were only 2 kings left in London, he and the Black Dragon only needed to hold back one each. The rest of the battle would be left to the Mother. With the Mother's characteristics and double the number of troops, they would definitely be able to flatten London in a short time. However, the blacksmith's conservative approach made the great demon reveal a rare smile. It must be known that the great demon captain always gave people the impression of being calm, serious, and even expressionless. The current situation was exactly what the great demon wanted. He was originally considering how to prevent the battle between the kings from affecting the other areas of London. Now, the blacksmith had saved him this trouble. As the white gelatinous face tore open into a strange mouth, the great demon captain's body began to change. Exaggerated hyperplastic tissue grew out of his back. An aura that didn't belong to humans was crazily overflowing. The battle between the kings wouldn't affect the overall situation for the time being. Father Lesotha's order was instantly transmitted to the ears of every resident of London. For a time, a large number of black shadows moved regularly in the street. They lit the street lamps on the side of the street or placed the black candles they carried with them in different areas of the street. With the sun being covered by the darkness released by the dragon and the Mother, they recreated the dark environment of London. Rumble! When the soldiers on the city wall withdrew, they also opened the city gate. The battlefield immediately underwent a 180-degree change. Even the invaders stopped moving forward and were very confused about the situation in front of them. In less than a minute, the Mother had completed the calculation and analysis of the current situation. The other side is just shrinking the defense line. All troops enter the city. Don't let go of any corner. Completely eliminate the hybrid demons hiding in the city. Once there is any discomfort on the consciousness level, immediately inject a nerve suppressant into your heart. It can effectively suppress the influence of the pollution on your mind. Because the hybrid demons abandoned the city wall defense line, the morale of the creatures from the 4 worlds was greatly boosted. A full-scale invasion. The mechanical life that was completely controlled by the Mother was also mixed in with one of the troop. Facing the dark street full of candles in front of them, they each took out their own means of illumination. Among them, the most effective were the sinful spirits hidden in cloaks. Most of them were mainly in the form of bones. They carried bone lanterns burning with red flames to resist the erosion of the darkness by burning their sins. In the form of small teams, they carefully searched every corner of the street and every room in the building. Some teams successfully found the hybrid demons hiding in the darkness and successfully killed them. In addition, some teams instantly disappeared because they mistakenly entered the strange area. The strangest of them all was London's sewer. There was an indescribable strangeness below. It was dirty. Just approaching the sewer would be contaminated with a gray sticky substance. It made the whole body uncomfortable and gave rise to an urgent desire to clean the body. Once any team went to the sewer, they would disappear completely within half a minute. However, the strangeness of the sewer did not affect the situation on the road. At the beginning of entering the city, the Mother temporarily issued an order to forbid the search of the sewer. When the exploration reached a certain limit, she would personally go down to investigate. After a while, many invasion teams passed through the invisible barrier and came to a clean neighborhood in the East City district without any pollution. There was even the aura of living people who had lived there. However, these living people seemed to have left early. There was no one there. They even bumped into a building that shouldn't exist in a hybrid demon city. It was a huge sanctuary that was similar to a cathedral. Its entire body was surging with a holy light, and every piece of colored glass was emitting a holy light. One of the craftsmen who worshipped the light was even in awe of such a sanctuary. However, the reverence immediately turned into killing intent. Many teams, including a nearby mythical entity, stepped into this strange sanctuary from the main door. Chapter 1383. With the mobile sanctum, an important facility of the Expeditionary Army as the foundation, combined with the technology provided by the Knights of Steam, a Gothic-style pure white church was built in the City of London with steam machinery as the power source. The fundamental function of the mobile sanctum was to remove the filth of the hybrid demons on the knights or to completely execute the irreversible fallen knight. Therefore, this church was also named the Sanctum of Reckoning. Olivia, the leader of the Holy Knights, was in charge. Although the two leaders, Malone and Alex, had left the city with a large number of troops, it did not affect the normal operation of the sanctum. The core members of the Holy Knights were still here. Of course, there was another leader, Shea Cromwell of the Scarlet Knights, who also stayed in the City of London. She lurked with the Scarlet Knights at the other end of the street in St. Dephil's Central Hospital, which was responsible for physical trauma treatment. Sanctum of Reckoning. As the church itself flowed with a strong holy aura, it occupied a large area and was built in a hybrid demon city, which seemed very out of place and strange. When there were no traces of hybrid demons in the nearby streets, all the invader teams gathered here. There were a total of 6 teams and more than 30 powerhouses with the level of door opening. The interaction was very high, and the abilities of each other could achieve a perfect complement. Wait a moment. The energy emitted by this building is abnormally strong. There may be a mythical body living in it. To be able to control such pure holy light, it must belong to a special species among the hybrid demons. Before you go in, everyone put on my mask. A low and strange voice came from the alley. A man wearing a top hat and a black robe slowly walked out of the alley. What was important to note was that this person's face seemed to be smeared with a thick layer of white powder. It also seemed like he was wearing a thin mask between skin and hard shell. The appearance of this person and the words that had just been transmitted made the members of the team around the Sanctum of Reckoning look troubled. There was even a look of fear in their eyes. Masked craftsman Adashirua, the mythical body from the Holy World, had a higher status than the Golden Saint that Han Dong had defeated. It was also more mysterious. Compared to most decent craftsmen, this masked craftsman was the exact opposite. He acted strangely, and the mythical body he developed also involved deep meat and spiritual transformation. This time, as a mythical general, he did not have any direct subordinates under his command. Don't worry, I won't do anything to you. The mask will be half embedded on your face, and you can take it off at any time. These masks will prevent you from being directly contaminated by the hybrid demons. At the same time, they will strengthen you according to your characteristic. After the investigation of this sanctum is over, you can return the mask to me. After saying that, the masked smith lifted his black robe to the left and right, revealing a dazzling array of faces. The material, style, and engravings of these masks all matched the current members of the team. If it were any other time, everyone would definitely refuse to wear it. In the face of the unknown threat of the hybrid demons, as well as the frequent reports of teams going missing, some people tried to put on the mask. A dragonkin in human form slowly put a rock mask on his face. Strange nerve tentacles immediately grew from the inside of the mask, extending into the facial pores and covering the face as a new layer of skin. When he tried to remove it, although there was pain from the nerves, there was not much of a problem overall. Most importantly, the dragonkin who put on the mask felt that his brain was unprecedentedly clear, and his ability to control rock formations and heavy pressure had also improved. At first, he still had some fear of the hybrid demons, but now it was gone. Seeing this, everyone also put on their mask. However, excluding the mechanical life belonging to the Mother Matrix. It was not that there were no masks for machines to use, but there were some other reasons. Let's go. Let's see what's so special about this church. The masked smith deliberately let the members of the team walk in front while he quietly followed behind. The door of the church was not closed at all and was easily pushed open. Rich holy light flowed on the ground of the church like a stream. Such an area made it difficult for the sinful spirits, who were inclined towards evil, to adapt. With the protection provided by the mask, they could barely move forward in the church. The rest of the individuals were not affected. There were even some individuals with righteous attributes who were exceptionally comfortable under the bathing of the holy light. There's no disguise. This is the real holy area of the church. The purity of the holiness condensed inside far surpasses most of the churches in our world. A saint-level craftsman touched the mural on the wall and gave a very high evaluation of the church. Seventh divine blessing, true God chain, an elegant female voice echoed in the church. Several chains made of holy light shot down from the arched ceiling of the church. Sinful spirits or individuals who emitted evil energy were all bound as the targets of the chains. Coupled with the suppression given by the church, they were not allowed to struggle at all. 2 of them shot toward the masked smith, but they bounced off when they were about to touch the surface of his body. However, the holy chains did not attack everyone. For example, the craftsmen who admired the church were spared from the damage of the chains. This is a place of holiness, and evil beings are forbidden to set foot in it. The voice echoed in the church, intensifying the purification effect of the holy light chains. The next second, the masked smith radiated a strange domain, and strange masks grew on the ground around him. The solute domain stimulated the bound individuals to a great extent. The masks that the masked smith had promised could be taken off at will were now completely rooted in their minds, completely controlling their consciousness and turning them into the masked smith's possessions. This also stimulated the individual's potential to a great extent, and at the same time, it allowed them to obtain a part of the mask's mythical effect. Bang! The holiness dissipated and the chains broke free. The masked smith at the back of the group whispered, "You're clearly an evil Yimo born from chaos, yet you insist on pretending to be related to holiness. How disgusting. I hope you can understand one thing. We're here because of the war, not for sightseeing or worship." The masked smith waved his hand. The individuals who were completely controlled by the masks began to accumulate different types of energy and were about to launch an indiscriminate bombardment to destroy the entire church. Buzz. In an instant, an incomparably dazzling light burst out from the high altar of the church. Even if one closed their eyes, they would still be affected. 4 individuals with evil attributes, the effect would be multiplied. The energy bombardment that was about to be released was interrupted. Whoosh! At the same time, a spear inlaid with gold and carrying an extremely destructive power shot out from the light. It forcefully pierced through the sinful bone shield created by a sinful spirit, pierced through the rotten and exposed flesh, and nailed it to the mural of the church. Holiness erupted, purifying and annihilating. This kind of trash dares to make a ruckus in the sanctum? I'm more than enough to deal with you. The sound of horse hooves came from the high altar. He was a grand knight with a sturdy physique that was comparable to the Lionheart knights in golden sacred armor. Riding on a golden warhorse, he appeared in the light. In his hand, holy energy with a destructive attribute was condensed, quickly condensing into an extremely exaggerated spiral spear. Holy Knights, First Corporal. Spear of the Holy Emperor Reinhard Scarlet. Chapter 1384. In the Holy City's plan for the positions of the knight. As long as it was a knight who had completed the mythical structure, they would be qualified to compete for the position of leader. Due to the infinite development given by the Destiny realm and the continuous improvement of the potential of human descendants, there were more and more mythical bodies. Slowly, there would be 2, 3, or even more mythical bodies in a group of knights. Of course, some mythical bodies were not competitive enough in various aspects, or because of their own characteristics, they would be invited by the Holy City's royal family or the Supreme Council. They would choose to leave the group of knights and go to a more suitable position. Therefore, in the general group of knights, only the leader and deputy leader would reach the mythical level. The first, second, and third captain below them were at the peak of the threshold. However, there were special situations in a few groups of knights. One of them was the Holy Knights. It was inseparable from the Holy See. It involved the extremely important spread of religion and the purification of all humans in the city. The Holy Knights had a very high status and even had a strong political intervention power. To become the leader, not only did they need to pass the regular leader's assessment, but they also needed to receive direct support from the Holy See. Olivia Christian was a saintess nurtured by the Holy See. Even with the full support of the Holy See, she did not take any shortcuts to become the leader. Instead, she took the position with absolute strength. Her position was extremely important to the Holy City. She was once regarded as the light of hope for humans against the hybrid demons. She was recognized by the Supreme Council and given the title of Holy Priest. She could participate in the discussion of issues that touched the foundation of the world. In the discussion of the Great Expedition, when it was mentioned that Olivia would be the person in charge of the mobile sanctum, it was immediately opposed by the Holy See. In the end, the Holy See reluctantly agreed with the request of many leaders, elders of the council, and Olivia. In order to ensure her safety, the 3 accompanying captains of the Holy Knights were all mythical level. At the same time, they had also undergone strict selection by the Holy See. They were Olivia's spear, spring, and shield. Now, Spear of the Holy King, Reinhard Scarlet. As the sharpest spear of the Holy Knights, he personally appeared and directly killed one of the members of the enemy. At the same time, as the holy light shone, one by one, the Holy Knights' cleansing unit appeared around the church, holding spears, swords, shields, or scepters. They joined forces with Reinhard to attack the intruders. Under the blessing of the sanctum, each of them was able to exert their strongest strength. This scene surprised the masked craftsman. Human. Furthermore, he was a human who had abandoned the influence of the hybrid demons and had grown up through fate. So that was how it was. No wonder they could build such a church. This is different from the information we received. Interesting. Try to get all of you to wear masks as well, so that I can slowly investigate the intelligence of your world. The mask maker, de Chirouet, revealed an extremely strange smile. His domain was fully activated. All friendly team members wearing masks were under deep control. At the cost of burning their truth, they burst out with 200% of their potential and fought against the Holy Knights who surrounded them like madmen. The most terrifying thing was, not only could the mask take root in the brain, but it could also spread its roots throughout the body. When an individual is at an absolute disadvantage, it is almost impossible to win. The masked craftsman would control this person to do everything possible to hug the opponent. Then, through the roots of the mask and his unique craftsmanship, he would transform this person into a living bomb. The explosion of one's physical body would release the truth that one had comprehended when opening the door, as well as all the energy contained within. It was extremely destructive. Of course, machines without masks were not affected. The fierce battle in the church slowly evolved into an explosion show. The knights who were blessed by the holy light were seriously injured. The entire sanctuary shook in the violent explosion. Part of the supporting enchantment was completely destroyed in the explosion. Explosions rang out one after another. The tremors spread along a special passage built at the bottom of the sanctuary. Crossing the sewer and avoiding the underground palace of the biological mother, they arrived at a special area full of ring-shaped bookshelves with different types of Bibles. It was called the Forbidden Doctrine. Olivia sat in the center position. The priest's coat was placed on the bookshelf beside her. Instead, it was replaced by pages of Bibles that covered her body. The subtle tremors of the explosion came here. A page of the Bible slipped off Olivia's body, revealing a pair of clear eyes. The body that had been imprisoned for a long time slowly moved. At this moment, the second captain, Yates Victoria, who symbolized spring, appeared here and stopped the captain's actions. "Captain, there is only one mythical invader. It should be no problem to leave it to Reinhardt. Even if it's not possible, let the shield go to support. There is no need for you to go in person. You are the hope of the Holy City. This time, you are only limited to providing treatment." The last Minano battle was chaotic enough. Olivia's fairy-like gentle voice echoed throughout the area. "At first, I thought so too. Until the explosion just now made me smell a forbidden breath. The situation above may be more dangerous than what we see. It may even lead to the death of all the members of the Holy Knights and the Holy See. Although staying in the Forbidden Doctrine can guarantee my safety. Once the battle is lost, everything will be meaningless. I have to go up and take a look. You accompany me." Yes, flesh and blood explosions sounded one after another. The liquidation team suffered heavy losses. They did not even have a chance to receive follow-up treatment. Reinhardt's warhorse turned into a pair of pure white leg armor, providing extremely strong movement speed. He was holding a spiral spear and fighting the masked man head-on. The domain called Holy Death was activated. Under his feet turned into the land left behind after the Holy War. Under the blessing of the domain, all of Reinhardt's attributes were enhanced. He also rolled up the scattered Holy Covenant papers on the ground to strengthen each attack. However, it was extremely difficult for his attacks to kill the target. Even the spear full of destructive holy light pierced through the masked man's body. He could clearly see the body disintegrate. The scattered masks on the side would give birth to a new body. The aura level was only weakened to a small extent. Even if the third captain with a giant shield joined in, it would be difficult to change the situation. It was difficult for the attacks of the two to touch the masked man's foundation. Similarly, the masked man was attacked by two mythical beings. He was also under pressure and could not cause substantial damage to the two. To think that there are two human mythical powerhouses hiding in the church. How boring. I don't want to play with you guys anymore. I have to find interesting body materials. The masked man had the intention to escape. The church, which was destroyed by the explosion, was full of gaps for masks to pass through. For a moment, the masked man's body self-destructed. At the same time, more than 30 masks shot into different gaps. Could be that only one was the original, or it could be that all of them were the original. Reinhardt could not tell at all. He was about to escape. But an arm that came out of nowhere accurately grabbed a white mask. At the same time, the rest of the masks lost control and fell to the ground. The white mask quickly split out ahead of the masked man. With a face full of fear and resentment, it asked, "What are you doing? I didn't break the rules. Your war contributions and predictable future contributions have been detected to be negative. You will be eliminated." "Wait, I'm willing." Before the words were finished, a dark matter laser shot out from the palm of his hand. The head and mask in his hand were instantly annihilated. At the same time, the other masks scattered in the church also disintegrated. The masked man from the holy level world, Deshirue, was declared dead. The mythical system he symbolized disappeared without a trace. The one who carried out all this was not a holy knight or a priest who came from below. It was an ordinary-looking robot. There was even a metal pipe connected to the neck that was still oozing oil. Chapter 1385. What's going on? The first corporal, the spear of the Holy Emperor, Reinhardt, and the third corporal, the shield of the Church, Phaeto, found it hard to understand what was happening in front of them. The mechanical life form that looked like an elite knight killed a mythical entity in a second. Although the masked craftsman was in a weak state during his escape, he was still a mythical entity. Only an attack that reached the level of the rules could kill him completely. What was even stranger was that the mechanical life form and the masked craftsman were allies. Why would they kill each other? While the two of them were still in shock, the leaking machine had already turned its head around. Non-hybrid demon London resident detected. Mythical level, high threat value. Eliminate him immediately. Feeling the red light released by the mechanical eye, the two holy knights felt like they were on the verge of death. Reinhardt gritted his teeth and injected all the energy he could into the spiral spear. Crackle, crackle, crackle. Golden holy light surged at the tip of the spear like a thunder snake. He took a big step forward and made an extremely standard throwing motion that could exert the greatest strength. Perhaps it was the stimulation of approaching death that stimulated all his potential. For a moment, Reinhardt even felt that he was holding the spear of Longinus that killed Jesus in his hand. The surface of the spiral spear glowed with bursts of red light, and even a few lines of forbidden holy text appeared. Die! The threat value is higher than the estimated value. Activate annihilation mode. Domain expansion. Buzz. The invisible domain was spread by the mechanical lifeform. Some looming green program code could be vaguely seen flowing on the ground. There seemed to be no change on the outside. But in Reinhardt's brain, a series of strange program codes suddenly flashed, trying to shut down all the attack commands generated in his consciousness. For a moment, all the muscles in his body slowly relaxed. We holy knights have long belonged to the Heavenly Father. How can we be interfered with by you? A strong power of faith gushed out and even made Reinhardt's brain burst out with golden light. With absolute faith, he resisted the interference of the program command to his brain. But he crushed the floor tiles with one foot. He held the spear tightly in his hand and threw it with all his strength. Wherever the spear passed, the ground was torn open. A layer of Longinus's shadow covered the surface of the spear, and its destructive power reached its peak. Just as it was about to hit the target Buzz, the robot raised its arm and made a stop gesture. The spear was completely stopped, just 1 millimeter away from his palm. If Han Dong was here, his magic I would see another strange scene. The seemingly normal church had been completely transformed into floating program codes. The spear that Reinhardt threw out was also quickly assimilated by the program. Analysis completed. Source program reading has reached 100%. At the same time that the spear turned into data and was absorbed into the metal body, a metal spear that looked exactly the same appeared in the other hand of the machine. He threw it directly at Reinhardt with an even stronger power. What? When Reinhardt wanted to dodge or defend himself, he realized that his self-consciousness was unable to give the two commands to his body. They were forbidden by the program that invaded his brain. Whoosh! Bright red blood spilled on the surface of the cross on the high altar. Reinhardt's eyes were bloodshot, but he wasn't hurt at all. The blood came from the third captain in front of him, shield of the church, Phaeto Walton. The spear completely broke through the epic shield he was carrying and pierced through the middle of his chest. The spear formed by the program was quickly invading Phaeto's body, and his whole body was turning into liquid metal. The relevant human data was also being read by the machine. Phaeto. When Reinhardt wanted to go forward to help, a stronger smell of death came from the front. When he looked up, the broken mechanical arm was facing him. A destructive energy that he had never seen before was condensing in the palm. Positron cannon, personal version. Once the cannon was formed, it would annihilate all life along the way, including the two captains. Buzz. The outline of the cannon was formed. A page from an unknown place fell on his arm, and the dogmatic text on the page burst out with holy light, breaking the condensation of the positron energy and activating it. Boom. Self-destruction. The rampaging positrons directly swallowed the machine itself, and all matter in the explosion area was annihilated, leaving not a trace of residue. At the same time, a woman like a fairy descended in front of the two captains with a beam of light. She wore a white robe with gold inlays that symbolized the priest, and a white veil covered her stunning face that would never age. Her white jade fingers touched Captain Fido's body, quickly forming a holy light film that covered his whole body, suppressing the program's deep erosion of the body. Quan, take the two of them to the Forbidden Dogma for treatment. I will take care of here. Hurry. Okay. At the same time, when all the captains withdrew, the already damaged door of the church exploded. A brand new machine stood at the door of the church, its mechanical eyes locked on the woman in front of it, and its mechanical head slowly tilted, as if it was puzzled by the data it read. Actual rank, mythical. The target's domain quality and quality are greater than the mythical limit, the target's energy quality is greater than the mythical limit, and the comprehensive threat value is greater than the mythical limit. What a strange human. When the battle was about to break out, the mechanical individual seemed to have received a piece of information that surprised her, and the speaker embedded in her body played cheerful and triumphant music. With Father Lesos's order, abandon the city wall defense line, the whole army retreated into the city. When hiding in the darkness and carrying out a kind of guerrilla warfare focused on corrosion, the enemy's invasion speed was obviously restrained, and even in the early stages of the battle, the invaders were injured faster than the hybrid demons. At this time, the sinful spirits scattered in different areas of London, carrying out the cleansing of the hybrid demons, all looked at an empty area in the sky because of some kind of reaction. Buzz. Without any warning, a slash of light cut through the sky. A graceful woman walked out of the spatial rift that had been smoothly cut open. There was a famous saber stuck in her neck. Her artistic conception seemed to be higher than before. She didn't care about the giant dragon fighting above the clouds. Instead, she looked at the city of London where small-scale battles were breaking out in many places. The newly recovered Emperor Slayer needed to do some warm-up activities. Sword draw. Slash. All the creatures that were active in the city had an irresistible ringing in their ears. In a situation where there was no protection. From the south to the north, London was cut in half. A deep scar of nearly 100 meters cut the city, exposing the Mother's Palace hidden underground. Not only that, in the area covered by the slash, the hybrid demons below the mythical level were invaded by the slash intent, and their bodies were forcibly cut in half. Dark, stinky blood spilled all over the buildings and streets. Hundreds of hybrid demons were seriously injured or dead. The balance that the garrison struggled to maintain was completely broken by this slash. Well, not bad. My slash intent has indeed improved. The slash just now was just an attempt to kill the Emperor. The next slash would completely destroy all the defenses of London. At this time, in London, two powerful auras gushed out at the same time. Father Lesos, who was holding an umbrella, turned into a black beam of light and came to a position in the air 100 meters away from the Emperor Slayer. At the same time, a bloody smell rose from the East City district where the expeditionary army lived. The bright red bat wings about 10 meters long carried the Duchess, who had fangs at the corner of her mouth, quickly to the sky area. Scarlet Knights, Captain Shea Cromwell, known as the Heart of the Knights. Father, if we work together, we should be able to hold on until the reinforcements arrive. I hope so. Chapter 1386. Father Lesos was frightened by the slash just now. He had worked for his mother for many years, but it was the first time he had seen such a terrifying attack. Although London did not have a land deed to support it, being slashed in half with one slash and even exposing the most important mother's palace was too much. Facing this king who was entangled in sin, Father Lesos even guessed that the other party was the strongest in the invasion. No matter what, we have to hold on until the reinforcements arrive. If we enter the next stage early, the outcome of this game will be worse than expected. Even if darkness is the price, we have to hold on. Moreover, this king's attack is too terrifying. Even if we fight in the sky, it may affect the city at any time, causing the destruction of the terrain and the deaths of the resident. We have to find a way to force her out. Father Lesos's gaze quickly swept across the London celestial body, the iceberg, the church headquarters, the human residential area, and the manor belonging to Han Dong. Although the enemy's technology was unexpected, the overall situation was still barely within the limit. Now, what he needed to do was to keep this line used for measurement above the limit. At this moment, a voice filled with a strange rhythm was heard. Lesos, let me give you a hand. This move can only be used once. After that, you need to do everything you can to restrict the other party to the periphery. Our work here is done. We only need to wait for the next stage to arrive. Okay. The source of the voice was the mythical celestial body that was always suspended above London. It belonged to a very special mythical body. They not only symbolized the destruction of the world, but also the basic unit that coordinated the operation of the celestial body. They played a decisive role in the last world disaster. At this moment, an eye with lava flowing from the core of the planet appeared on the surface of the celestial body. The priest immediately signaled Captain Shea to use all means to block the hearing. The next attack would mainly be used to slay the king, but the nearby creatures would also be slightly affected. Perhaps even their brains would explode. Celestial body music of the stars. Perhaps it was through the unique movement of the planet's crust, combined with the musical foundation obtained through inheritance, a sound that could interfere with the rules of the world was emitted from the planet's body. The sound that was emitted at the moment revolved around retreat, and had an independent effect. In an instant, an invisible force field like a phantom instantly acted on the body of the king. 1. Even the priests and Captain Xiaya, who had sealed off their hearing in advance, felt a strong ringing in their ears, and liquid seeped out of their 7 orifices. However, they were only affected by less than 10%. As for the celestial voice, it was mainly used to kill emperors. Clang! Clang! The genuine lumen sword in his hand vibrated at a high frequency, and the bandages covering his body were broken. With the theme of retreat, the voice actually disturbed the very foundation of Emperor Slayer's own rules. Hum! A ring of colorful ripples spread out in the air, and the King Slayer Emperor's body twisted as if he had been hit by a super heavy blow. He turned into a gray ray of light and retreated 10,000 meters in the air, completely leaving London. In the meantime, due to the interference of the higher king through the rules of speech, 3 deep cracks directly appeared on the surface of the celestial body, and the celestial voice could not be used for a period of time. However, just forcing them to retreat was useless. If there were no restrictions, Emperor Slayer would be able to return to London after a slight recovery. Miss Xiaya, I'll be going first. The moment the celestial voice ended, the priest had turned into a black shadow and was approaching Emperor Slayer. The umbrella in the priest's hand had already turned into a 2-meter-long heavy sword with black water flowing out of it. At the same time, his black shirt had completely exploded at this moment, revealing a strong body full of dark stigmata. These stigmata that covered the surface of his body looked more like a mouth without a lip structure. The Dark Dwellers mainly used secret techniques, and Lethos belonged to the rare type of combat. His body was also unique among the dark dwellers, and was called the black devouring body. It could use darkness as food for the body, devouring any form of dark matter to strengthen the body. At this moment, the stigmata opened up in the form of a mouth, spitting out terrifying dark tentacles. This posture meant that the priest was going all out with all the darkness that he had absorbed in his life. This was also the main reason why his birth mother intended to transfer the title deed of London to the priest. With the priest's potential, he would definitely be able to seize the throne one day. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The priest's speed kept increasing as he charged forward. While Emperor Slayer was still affected by the celestial voice and could not make a move due to the weapon in his hand trembling violently, he swung the heavy sword in his hand with all his might. Black moon, accompanied by the powerful downward slash of the black heavy sword, a crescent moon was reflected in the air for a long time. Ding! The crisp sound of the collision and the shock waves spread out at the same time. Emperor Slayer's body fell heavily, smashing a huge pit in the metal desert. However, the priest's expression was not good. "This is an attack that I gave with all my strength. Is it still useless?" Emperor Slayer had blocked the heavy attack just now, and only received the pure impact, which did not cause much damage at all. Hiss! The priest gritted his teeth. The stigmata mouths all over his body spat out thick darkness, forming a dark demon with tentacles covering his face and body. He charged at Emperor Slayer, who was in the sand pit at full speed, not giving his opponent a chance to rest. However, ding! At the same time that the sound of weapons clashing was heard, a sandstorm that was tens of meters high exploded in the surroundings. Motionless, the priest, in his dark demon god form, coupled with the downwards acceleration, gave him a full-force crush, but was blocked by Emperor Slayer's blade. His body remained standing, and only his knees were slightly bent. What was even more terrifying was that Emperor Slayer only used one hand to hold the blade. The gap was like the gap between a legend and an emperor, an insurmountable chasm. Oh no! When the priest realized that something was wrong, Emperor Slayer's other hand made a bare-handed slash. Whoosh! The priest tried his best to turn his body. He barely avoided the slash from his head to his shoulder. His left arm and part of the left side of his body were completely cut off. At the same time, a slash mark that was hundreds of meters long appeared in the sand behind the priest. Rule, a slash that contained the rule, once damaged the body, it would be difficult to heal, unless, hiss, 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 blood vessels grew. A large number of new blood vessels suddenly grew between the priest's left hand that was thrown in the air and the priest's body, intertwining and quickly stitching together. An indescribable vitality forcefully offset the rule between the wounds, completing the reconnection of the limbs. At the same time, a bright red leather whip was thrown out from the blind spot, firmly binding Emperor Slayer's body. Captain Xiaya held the leather whip with one hand and the hair that was hanging on her face with the other. "Priest, show us all your trump cards, or else we will all die here." However, the one who answered was not the priest. It was Emperor Slayer, who was bound by the leather whip and whose body was dyed red with blood. An elegant female voice came through the vibrations of the blade. "As expected of S01, there are so many top-notch mythical bodies. The two of you are even more powerful than the insects and plants I encountered before. What a pity." Chapter 1387. Blood. This liquid was the root that supported the growth of life in thousands of worlds. In the thousands of worlds that were related to the Black Tower, even if the world's background was different, the guidance given by the true God was different, or the development direction of life was different, there would always be an experience that would be interested in the blood flowing in the body. Most of the worlds would eventually develop a branch related to blood. In the process of development. Just like in the hybrid demon world, There was the blood descendants represented by the Middle Old King, CHF. Or in the world that Count was currently associated with, there was the corresponding underworld blood system. However, the blood that the Scarlet Knights, Shea Cromwell possessed was closely related to herself and not completely from the world system. Shea could be called the heart of the Knights and controlled the hospital system of the entire Holy City, so that more than 70% of the Knights could be guaranteed to be in good health, survive, or leave no sequelae. When the top Knights of the Holy City planned to carry out the extremely difficult mythical level, Journey of Destiny, they would often try to bring Shea along. As for Shea's true identity, even many of the commanders did not know. As the daughter of the Duke, she, who was born in the end of the world, did not inherit many good genes. Instead, she suffered from an extremely rare immune deficiency disease. The most important thing was, this congenital defect disease would cause an individual to have obvious external manifestations. When Shea sucked breast milk for the first time, she showed a bloodthirsty characteristic and actually sucked a little blood from her mother. Later, it was discovered that she could obtain a temporary immune recovery by drinking blood. Her desire for blood continued to increase as she grew older, and it had to be the arterial blood of a living person. Once such a characteristic was exposed, she would be regarded as a heretic by the Holy See, and even the Duke's position would be affected. Therefore, the Duke would often buy some slaves from the civilian area and bring them home as Shea's snacks. However, Shea's nature was very kind. Although she could not control her desire for blood, she would try to stop eating as much as possible to save the lives of the slaves. At the same time, Shea asked her father to provide these poor slaves with good tonics. When they recovered from anemia, they would be given a certain amount of money and freedom and return to normal life in the civilian area. On the surface, the Duke agreed to his daughter's request, but in fact, he quietly executed the slaves. The population of the Holy City was a problem. The most important thing was that the Duke had to cut off all possible channels that might leak the secret. This matter must be hidden well. The turning point of all this happened when Xiaoya was 12 years old. Because her desire was too strong and hard to suppress, Xiaoya's bite almost caused the servant to faint. Xiaoya, whose heart was filled with guilt, sneaked out of the room and followed him in the dark, wanting to see if this servant could survive. In the end, he accidentally saw an extremely terrifying scene. The servant did not receive any medical treatment and was directly thrown into the bottomless cellar. There were also many familiar faces below. They were all the servants that Shea had met in the past month. They were piled up in the cellar in the state of corpses, waiting to be dealt with together. Knowing the truth, the guilt in his heart instantly turned into a heavy mountain of sin. Xiaoya escaped from the Duke's mansion in the middle of the night and ran down the stairs of the Holy City, which symbolized the difference in rank, towards the lowest level of the commoner's district. She didn't know what to do to atone for her sins, so she just ran around aimlessly. At this moment, she accidentally caught a glimpse of the Chosen One gathering in the square of the civilian district. A story she had heard by chance emerged in her mind, a story about fate and night. Xiaoya, who was only 12 years old, mixed into the crowd in the square and participated in the first test of fate. What she didn't know was that because of eating blood all year round to replenish her immunity, coupled with various precious ingredients from the fate space provided by the Duke, her physique had long surpassed that of ordinary people. Because of Xiaoya's intervention, the difficulty of the incident that the team encountered was raised to 4.5 stars. Using this as an opportunity, Xiaoya obtained the ability to control blood in advance. At the same time, she also found the answer in her heart, the answer to how to obtain redemption. Because of personal and family reasons, she didn't step into the Knights Academy to undergo any systematic learning. She only secretly went to the clock tower to participate in the test of fate once a year. The clock not only did not stop this unqualified little girl, but also warmly received her every time and secretly erased her tracks when she came to the clock tower. Just like this, Xiaoya quietly grew up in the dark. When she was 23 years old, a serious hybrid demon invasion broke out in the Holy City, affecting the middle level where the nobles live. Unfortunately, Xiaoya was in the street where the incident happened today to buy medical equipment and medical-related books. When the knights arrived, dozens of blood corpses that were contaminated by blood wine had all died, and there was a small mountain of them. As for the mature hybrid demon that caused the blood corpse incident, it was completely possessed by a resident, and it was being held in the hand of a young girl. The essence blood that originated from the hybrid demon flowed into the girl's body. A month later, Xiaoya was invited to join the Scarlet Knights and directly became an elite knight. 2 years later, the Scarlet Knights held a succession ceremony. Xiaoya Cromwell became the new captain, and she was also the youngest captain in history. The reason was not only because of Xiaoya's strength, but also because of Xiaoya's uniqueness in the fate space. Due to her birth defect, her kinship trait allowed her to accidentally connect with a world filled with blood. More importantly, that world had even prepared the throne qualification for her. Using the authority of the captain, Xiaoya controlled all the private medical units in the Holy City in one fell swoop and established Saint Dephil Central Hospital. Including the civilian area, there were branches in all areas of the Holy City, providing almost free medical treatment to critically ill patients. Territory expansion. A blood moon. A crescent moon that was dripping blood hung in the sky, and the area covered included Emperor Slayer and Father Lysos. Team Buff-type territory. Bathed in the blood moon, Father Lysos felt his HP increase rapidly, and his regeneration speed was about 3 times faster than before. When he was heavily injured, the moonlight bathed in blood would also perform super-fast surgery on the individual arm. However, the most important increase was in Xiaoya, the main body. The bloody skull mask that faintly hurts, the unruly beast that shocks the world. Confusion, bright red, madness, howling, all are stopped at this moment in eternal sleep. The endless sea of blood, the silent and peaceful ultimate forbidden prison. Grow. Devour. Spread to the high mountains, seal the common people. Prince's blood curse. 8 blood prison coffin seal. Father Lysos left Emperor Slayer's position at full speed. A red coffin that looked like an iron maiden rose from the ground, about 100 meters tall, and instantly sealed Emperor Slayer within it, at the same time. The blood moon completely shattered like a living thing, and the blood that poured down poured onto the surface of the coffin, completing the strongest blood curse that Xiaoya could cast now. So strong. Father Lysos was stunned by the blood coffin in front of him. Whoosh. A mythical level, beyond understanding / spread out horizontally. A huge opening was cut open in the blood coffin. Emperor Slayer, whose body was entwined by countless blood vessels and roots, was looking at Xiaoya through the opening with his mind's eye. As a low-level human enslaved by the hybrid demons, to be able to reach this level, you should be the strongest among this group of humans, as he spoke. The throne with 7 famous swords hanging from it slowly rose from Emperor Slayer's feet. At the same time that the bright red bondage was broken, Emperor Slayer took a famous sword that was specially used to cut flesh, and quickly cut off the blood vessels that were connected to her body, breaking the coffin with his own strength. The self-repair of the blood coffin, combined with the continuous supply of blood energy from Xiaoya's main body, could not compare to Emperor Slayer's destructive power. 5 minutes later, the 100-meter-tall blood coffin completely collapsed, and even the desert within a radius of 5 miles was completely dyed red. To be able to touch the king's sealing spell, you're really powerful. If I wasn't locked in the magnetic chamber before, I might have been trapped by you for a longer time. Unfortunately, your current level is not enough to threaten me. Your blood flows with heavy sins. I will cut open your body, and bring your soul to the abyss of sins. With just one step, Emperor Slayer arrived in front of Xiaya. The true path of Lumen was already hanging above her head. However, at this moment, Xiaya's face was relaxed. She raised her hand to stop Father Lesos, who wanted to help, and said in a relaxed tone, "I never thought that I could defeat or threaten you. My purpose for leaving the hospital early was to cooperate with the hybrid demons and buy as much time as possible. In addition, you guessed one thing wrong. I'm not the strongest among humans. Compared to those monsters, who don't care about their lives, my strength ranking among the leaders is not even in the top 10. I'm just a doctor, not a warrior." Sniff. Xiaya deliberately sniffed at this moment. It's coming. After saying that, a string of black shadows suddenly flashed past the two of them. At this moment, Emperor Slayer was forced to withdraw his attack and enter a state of alert. When the night flashed past, there was a sense of crisis, as if the Grim Reaper's scythe was at his throat. However, this feeling gradually disappeared as the black shadow went further away. Something very dangerous just passed by. What's going on? Emperor Slayer hurriedly looked over with his mind's eye. He saw a skeletal warhorse that was constantly releasing the aura of death was carrying a mysterious black-robed man toward the city of London at the fastest speed, completely ignoring their situation here. Just when Emperor Slayer was puzzled, the surrounding air suddenly became dry and hot. When his head turned in the direction of the aura, the world had completely changed. The alien desert, which was originally composed of metal sand, evolved into a piece of pitch-black scorched earth full of cracks. The 5-day sky of space turned into the hellish sky covered by layers of red clouds and black fog. Ta-ta-ta, ta-ta-ta. The unusually heavy sound of horse hooves caused the earth to resonate, as if an army of demons was about to arrive on the scorched earth. However, when he looked over, he only saw a figure. The very conspicuous ash crown hung above his head. His eyes burned with the flames of hell that could extinguish the soul. The demon armor that was completely integrated with the body was thirsting for the soul of the strong. On their chests was the mark of a skull with a demon's horn, which represented the most aggressive group in the Holy City, the Hell Knights, who were always at the forefront of the army. P.S. The title event has begun. You can go to the book circle to participate. Chapter 1388. Since Markham City was located on the opposite side of Pandora from London, the location was personally determined by the Matrix. It was mainly to ensure that the hybrid demons who came to Pandora for the first time couldn't find any information about them. Therefore, Grim Reaper and Malone, who tried to sneak in secretly, had to cross more than half of the planet to get back. Compared to Emperor Slayer, who rushed over from Herbal & Company's station route, it was more than 10 times farther. They barely made it in time. 5 minutes ago, Grim Reaper and Malone stepped back to the metal desert where London was located. At this moment, they saw a 100-meter-tall scarlet coffin rising from the ground near London. Even though the bloody aura from Shea was extremely strong, it couldn't hide the king's aura mixed in it. Suddenly, the veins on Malone's forehead were all bulging. The Hellsteed under him burst out with an indescribable speed and caught up with Grim Reaper, whose agility was already higher. "Alex, leave the situation with Shea to me. You go straight to the city." "Okay." Alex didn't say much. He put away the silver scythe on his back and further injected energy into the horse. He once again pulled away from Malone at a terrifying speed. He directly flashed past Emperor Slayer and Captain Shea and went into the city. Game balance meant that the number of individuals of the same level was equal. There must be a hostile king that Alex needed to control. At this moment, Malone's gaze was neither on the dragon in the sky nor the city of London that was cut in half. His pupils focused. He locked onto Shea, who was constantly coughing out blood and had suffered dozens of mind slashes on her body, who was kneeling on the ground. If he was even 5 seconds later, Shea would be buried here. All of a sudden, images of the two of them flashed through his mind. At the same time, there were also some conversations that were deeply etched in his memory. Clock Tower's secret room. Clock Keeper, where did this girl come from? We're about to carry out a more difficult mission. We don't have time to take care of her. My name is Shea Cromwell. I'm 18 years old this year. Although I didn't join the Knights, I've already completed the seed destruction. I'm very powerful. If you don't believe me, cut off your hand. I can fix it for you right away. Bar room. Malone hugged the reluctant Grim Reaper with one hand, while holding a large wine glass with the other, and poured wine into his mouth without restraint. Sitting opposite him was Shea, who was only 20 years old and had a high ponytail. Congratulations, Big Brother Malone, for becoming the commander of the Demon Guards of the Hell Knights. It's no big deal. Malone, will definitely become a captain within 10 years. In the future, I will become the strongest knight in the Holy City and lead the Hell Knights to kill all the hybrid demons outside the city. Burp. Oh right. Xiaya, what do you want to do in the future? Me? I want to open a hospital that can provide the best treatment for all of humanity. Just this? Yeah. In front of the bell tower. I'll be back in 5-10 years at most. The rules of hell are too complicated. Xiaya's childishness was completely removed, and she now had a mature temperament. She stared at Malone with tears in her eyes, gritted her teeth, and nodded. Okay, I'll wait for you for 10 years. Who knew that Malone would walk for more than 30 years? The road to becoming a king was far more difficult than he had imagined. Because of this, he had always felt guilty, and even developed some inner demons at the final stage of becoming a king, but it was difficult for him to express his personality. Staring at Xiaya, who was almost executed, Malone fell into a rare state of rage. You motherf***cur, don't you dare touch her! A hell domain that could tear apart the rules of the world spread wildly behind him along with his overflowing anger. It didn't just turn the metal desert into a scorched hell. It even vaguely established a connection with the large world, hell, which was not very far away. It was separated only by a thin membrane. Many large hell demons felt the aura of the king and crowded in front of the passage, wanting to tear the membrane to help Malone fight. There were even 3 hell demon kings, who had the same status as Malone, but had extremely high seniority, who felt the appearance of the world's membrane. Their original bodies crossed the hell level and arrived on the other side of the membrane. They stared at Emperor Slayer, who was not far away, with a look of hatred, resentment, and contempt. Suddenly, Emperor Slayer's calm heart was stirred up, forcing her to take 2 steps back and set up a defensive move. She had completely forgotten about Xiaya, who was originally going to kill her. However, Pandora had been completely sealed off by the Black Tower. Even if Malone was the node holder or a major shareholder, he couldn't call for help from the corresponding world. At most, he could only do this much. Of course, Malone didn't need anyone's help. He was bound to kill the target himself, using the suppression provided by the Demon King's vision. A flaming horse's hooves trampled past Emperor Slayer. He didn't attack her immediately. Malone tried his best to suppress his anger. The first thing he needed to do was to take Xiaya, whose energy was almost depleted and her consciousness was about to be destroyed by the thought execution, away from the battlefield to prevent her from being affected by the upcoming battle. The flames burning on the Hell Warhorse were all extinguished. Malone hugged Xiaya, who was sitting on the horse's back, with one hand, and played with her brown curly hair with the other. He spoke in a tone of a king that was absolutely reassuring. It's okay. Leave the rest to me. Who knew that the response to Malone was neither a weeping beauty nor a gaze full of worship and adoration. Instead, it was a look of disgust and even a little rejection. Did you and Alex fall in love on the road? Why are you so slow? Do you think I want to go to the front line? I was just trying to buy some time. I was almost killed just now. Hey! We didn't stop for a moment and rushed back at full speed, okay? At least I saved you in time. Can't you give me some face? You made such a cool entrance, but it's so boring in an instant. You weren't like this in the past. Xiaoya's words completely extinguished Malone's anger. Don't mention the past to this duke. Once you mention it, I want to whip you twice. Also, don't let your anger get to your head. This king from another world is very strong. If you're not careful, you'll be killed too. Yes, I was a little impulsive just now. I almost attacked in a fit of anger, but I won't be killed in one strike. This time, I won't let you wait any longer. Once I'm done with everything here, we'll go back to the holy city together. What happened in the past was my fault. This was the first sincere apology. Xiaoya didn't say much after hearing it. At this time, the Hellsteed stopped in front of Father Lessos. Father, take Xiaoya directly back to London. Alex has already rushed back to the city. There won't be much of a problem. Leave it to me here. Oh, okay. The priest was also frightened by the picture of hell in front of him. It was the first time he saw someone who could tear apart the membrane of the world with their will. He stared at the two people who were leaving. Malone jumped off the horse, grabbed the back of the Hellsteed, and pulled it out forcefully. Crack! The entire body of the warhorse was reconstructed with the spine as the center, turning into a blade full of tooth marks. It could even increase the heat release of the blade by twisting the handle like a motorcycle and accumulate internal kinetic energy. He dragged the exaggerated blade with one hand and waved at Emperor Slayer with the other. Come on. Chapter 1389. Wung wung wung. Similar to the roar of an engine, the weapon in Malone's hand was a pure product of hell. It came from various materials obtained by Malone in the Demon King's trial, including the body parts and demon essences obtained from killing the 72 demon god. He also entered the forbidden demon domain that no demon had ever touched and found the Demon King's treasure chest that was hidden by an unknown person. He obtained the vital components for the construction of the weapon on the day he was crowned as king. With the help of the blacksmiths from Hell and the other Demon King's gifts and assistants, they jointly created this Hell-divine weapon that fused with the attribute of carrier and completely matched Malone's characteristics. Yuzatham Tyrant Empire. When checked in the illustration handbook of Fate, the name of the equipment was dark gold. Its essence had already surpassed the concept of the quality of a conventional weapon of Fate. During the construction period, not only did it gather extremely high-quality materials, it was also infused with the laws of the world of Hell and the will of the Demon King of Hell. Just like its name, this weapon, which had a wild style and vividly expressed the theme of Hell, possessed extremely brutal destructive power. The most terrifying thing was that it had war growth ability. It would increase its destructive power according to the duration of the battle, Malone's state and the number of combos it gave. Because of the conversation with Shea, Malone's accumulated anger had completely dissipated. In exchange, he was in a relatively calm state of battle. Looking not far away, there were bandages wrapped around his private parts, and many parts of his body were in a state of being cut. In his hand there was a sword that was not inferior to his own. Shea is right. This guy is different from the Wu King I have seen. Whether it is the bragging guys in Hell or the boulder I met in Fate, their styles are completely different. The biggest difference is in the domain. This guy actually hid his domain in his body? If so, he would be affected by the scorched earth hell. No matter what, let's test her first. Malone slowly changed from walking to jogging. The frequency of turning the hilt also increased. With the activation of the core engine, even a large amount of fire splashed out from the blade. However, just as Malone was about to enter the attack range, Zhan Huang suddenly shifted his center of gravity, straightened his left leg, and returned the famous sword to his waist, making a standard sword drawing posture. The bandage wrapped around his wrist automatically gathered into a scabbard structure, and his aura suddenly skyrocketed. One heart sword draw, a strong sense of danger rose in Malone's heart. It had been a long time since he had felt this way. The slash that was nearly 100 meters diagonally struck from the front, annihilating all the sand in its path. In the blink of an eye, a several 100-meter-long slash mark appeared in the desert, and Malone, who had been hit head-on, was pushed 100 meters away. Before the sand in the air dispersed, Malone's voice was heard. "So that's how it is. Is this the purpose of restraining one's domain? Increase your attack power to the maximum." Slowly, Malone's figure appeared. Scorching hot blood was dripping continuously. Maintain the same posture. He still dragged his weapon to the ground and did not use it to block the terrifying slash just now. Instead, he completely turned his left arm into a devil's hand and used his palm to block Zhan Huang's slash. The price he paid for this was that the pitch-black claw-shaped devil's palm was cut about 10 centimeters deep, reaching the depth of his wrist, and the devil's blood kept dripping. Compared to Malone, who was shocked by the power of the slash, Zhan Huang was even more surprised. That slash just now had gathered her artistic conception, and it was a serious slash. Under the situation of a direct hit, it was only injured to this extent. For a moment, Zhan Huang's state of mind changed. The clear lake in her heart began to be dyed black by sin. Or it could be said that this was the state of mind that a sinful life should have during a battle. The blade returned to the scabbard. 12 trials, whoosh. Sword draw. This sword draw felt completely different from the previous one. It even felt like an attack from a different person. The moment the sword was drawn, no blade appeared. Instead, it created a kind of artistic conception that symbolized sin and affected reality. With Malone as the center, a total of 12 giant skeletons that symbolized sin appeared around him. They were of different shapes. Some had lanterns on their heads, some had babies in their bellies, and some had copper coins hanging on their arms. They all held samurai swords in their hands, and at the same time, they swung different types of sin slashes. All paths of retreat were blocked, and there were different slashes from all angles. It was extremely tricky. Facing such a scene, Malone revealed a smile with a different kind of interest. Whoosh! He stabbed the weapon in his hand into the ground and freed his right hand. It seemed like he didn't intend to use his weapon to block such an attack. He muttered a string of words in the devil's language. Black blood vessels with sharp thorns bulged on his arms, and his skin was as black and tattered as scorched earth. Both of his arms were 100% demonized. At the same time, 2 exaggerated devil horns grew on his forehead. Then, he adopted a unique parry posture. This posture didn't come from hell, but was a basic skill that Malone first learned in the Oi Crusader Academy. "Come!" His angry roar spread out a shock wave of 1,000 meters in the desert. Facing 12 different slashes from different directions, styles, strengths, and even attributes in Malone's eyes, it was like going through the basic training in the past. In the case where the body was strong enough, the back of the hand, the bottom of the palm, the wrist, and the elbow, as long as they were used to the extreme, they could block the opponent's weapon attack. Ding ding ding! The sound of weapons colliding that could tear an ordinary person's eardrums continued to spread. The 12 slashes that symbolized the judgment of sin were all blocked by Malone, and most of them were bounced off by skill. One of the slashes was at a tricky angle, and Malone had to forcibly crush it with his palm. His arms were cut in many places, and blood kept flowing out, but none of the slashes hurt the inner layer. At the same time, after being attacked in succession, Malone's anger level increased to a certain level. The moment he blocked all the attacks, he grabbed the tyrant that was stuck in the ground. Buzz! He twisted the hilt, and hot purgatory lava and the devil's howl came out together. His legs kicked the ground. He soared into the air, and was at the same level as the 12 skeletons. Slaughterhouse, a horizontal slash with heavy blood, minced meat, and lava formed in the air. All the skeletons were cut in half at the waist, and the wounds made a terrifying sound that was similar to the sound of bones being crushed in a slaughterhouse. Visible to the naked eye, the giant skeletons were all sucked in and turned into bone dust. Upon closer inspection, the tyrant in Malone's hand seemed to have become sharper, and the meat seemed to have become denser. At the same time, Malone, who was soaring in the air, had already locked his eyes on Emperor Slayer, who was hundreds of meters away. Whoosh! A pair of demon wings spread out on his back. The spread of the wings, coupled with the release of anger, created several sonic booms during the dive, and the speed was incredible. Hell Sword Burial outside London. Suddenly, a sword-shaped tombstone that was full of blood and violence rose up, and the wind that it raised even affected London. Chapter 1390. This slash even slowed down the war that was breaking out all over London by a second. Looking at the Hell Sword Burial thousands of meters away, one would feel a faint sense of pain and fear. Not only the enemy, but even the hybrid demons felt the same. Malone's attack was a pure and indiscriminate destruction. It directly caused the ground within a radius of 5 miles to collapse and the sand to sink, along with the shattered rock stratum and a large amount of metal sand. It fell into the underground mine that had been emptied by the Arms Company. Pandora's largest pyrolite mine and snow storage area was once called Pyrolite Paradise. Malone, holding the tyrant blade, steadily landed on a stable platform about 500 meters underground. The Emperor Slayer was not far away. To be precise, it should be the remains of the Emperor Slayer. Whoosh! The true path of Lumen was inserted into the ground. Immediately after, crackle! The Emperor Slayer's limbs were completely crushed and fell one by one. All the limbs fell on the throne with the 7 famous swords hanging on it. Malone, who used Hell Sword Burial, was slightly exhausted. However, he naturally would not miss such a good opportunity to defeat the enemy's king. He forcibly suppressed the blood in his body and raised his sword. Who knew? Just as he was about 10 meters away, the scattered limbs were forcibly connected by the sinful threads and quickly pieced together an arm. He lifted the true path of Lumen and slashed. And the power was not weak at all. He took it head-on. The demon's palm blocked in front of him and his fingers tightly clasped the blade. This slash forced Malone back 100 meters. From the open wound on his palm, strange sinful threads continued to overflow. In addition to the pain, there was also a strange feeling, as if something was affecting his body. Malone muttered, "The body, is it a sword? The body is just a piece used to control the body." In order to kill the enemy to the greatest extent, she actually gave up everything and turned herself into a weapon. What a terrifying person. However, I am stronger than her. Malone, who received the slash, slowly walked back to his original position. During this period of time, the Emperor Slayer's body had been completely restored. Even so, a large amount of sins were completely annihilated by the Hell Sword Burial. His appearance changed. The bandages wrapped around his body were concentrated on his head. Together with the sinful threads at the core of his body, they formed a female head covered in bandages and with fluttering black hair. Beneath the bandages, one could vaguely see the eye sockets, the bridge of the nose, and the mouth through the gaps between the bandages. It no longer sounded through the vibrations of the blade. He spoke a common language that Malone could understand. The Black Tower's information regarding your world S01 is indeed problematic. How could a human like you be enslaved by the hybrid demons? There should be a relatively equal set of survival rules between you two, right? I'm working on it. It's a very complicated world. Come to think of it, you're probably the strongest of all the kings of the same level I've fought. You're probably the strongest of the S01 humans, aren't you? Malone smiled brightly. Well, I'm working hard towards this goal. In terms of true strength, I don't know about the other cities, but I should be ranked third in the humans' holy city. Oh right. It's the guy who just passed by you. In terms of killing ability, he's even better than me. When Malone mentioned this, Emperor Slayer immediately remembered that when she was about to kill the blood-related human, a figure mixed with the aura of death flashed past. It was also this change that made Emperor Slayer give up on killing the enemy and switch to defense. Even if she was just passing by quickly, she still felt a strong sense of death all over her body. Compared to the hellish pressure that Malone exerted, this sense of death from having a scythe at her throat was even more terrifying. There was even a moment when the aura of death wrapped around the body of the scythe instead of the body. London East District is Sanctum of Reckoning. Dozens of mechanical god assistants spent a lot of energy to build the cathedral with the help of the Holy Knights, but it had already completely collapsed. There were even many buildings in the nearby streets that had been destroyed. Broken limbs of the Holy Knights could be seen everywhere. Olivia was currently hiding in a civilian building to treat her wounds. Her sacred and inviolable body of holiness had already been pierced through the side of her waist by more than 10 centimeters. She was currently healing the wound with the help of a holy weapon, but the regeneration speed was extremely slow. It was important to note that Olivia was currently only facing a mind-controlled body. If the other party's main body had come, she might have already died. Creak, creak, mechanical sounds of jamming could be heard from the stairwell. A broken machine with oil leaking from its body was slowly moving up the stairs. Listening to the sound, it seemed that it was still a distance away. Just as Olivia was about to move, whoosh, a laser pierced through the ground, shot through the sole of her foot, and even pierced through her entire calf. The pain that seeped into her bones and soul made Olivia unable to move. The next second, a machine that looked like the one in the movie Terminator appeared in front of her. It grabbed her head and lifted her into the air. Positron energy began to condense in its palm. Even Olivia, who had an extremely special constitution, would not be able to survive such a close-range hit. Threat assessment, 1%. Escape probability, 371%. I didn't expect that a human enslaved by the hybrid demons could reach this level. You're considered the top of the mythical stage. No wonder the Black Tower issued a recruitment order for the 4 worlds to jointly invade you. In the case of the same level, the quality is indeed much higher. You've wasted a lot of my time. During this time, I instinctively invaded the core of London, or at least Purge. Who? Because during the search for Olivia, the machine controlled by the mother's mind maintained a state of perception. Not only did it simulate the human sensory system, but it also radiated a type of program field in a large area. Just a moment ago, it accidentally captured an individual whose program could not identify and whose combat power could not be estimated. The threat level was much higher than the human woman in front of it. Because of the sudden incident, the mother's analysis and judgment changed the target. Turning the palm aimed at Olivia's head, it tilted down and fired a personal version of a positron cannon. The annihilating cannon energy penetrated the current building and destroyed an entire row of buildings on the side. Rumble as the entire building collapsed, smoke and dust filled the street. A skeletal black horse carried a knight hidden in a cloak back to the human residential area of London. It stopped just below the building where the incident occurred. Under the hood, silver hair and white eyes. His sunken cheeks made him look abnormally thin. Gently patting the horse, the skeletal horse left on its own. It seemed to disappear into the smoke and dust, but also seemed to go deep into the underworld. The silver scythe was drawn and slashed upward. Whoosh! The entire building was split into 2. The machine that was staring at him was also completely cut open. Not only that, the machine's consciousness was connected to the core of the central building of Markmas City. A small scratch appeared on the surface of the metal ball of the mother's body. Bursts of death aura overflowed from the scratch. On the other side, this strike of the scythe caused the building to completely collapse. Olivia, who was injured in many places, was unable to gather holy light magic for a moment. Her entire body fell from a position near the top of the building. However, Alex did not make the corresponding movement to catch her. He allowed the Holy Lady to fall heavily on the concrete ground beside him. But the sound was that of a soft bones physique. Alex looked at her with a cold gaze. This degree of fall should be fine, right? Once my body touches you, there will be a rejection worse than falling. Olivia bit her lip and slowly propped herself up. It's okay. It's good that you're back. This is the information I collected. Be careful. The opponent's king is difficult to deal with. Chapter 1391. He stared at Olivia, who was trembling and having trouble even walking. Alex temporarily kept the silver scythe behind him and retracted all the overflowing death aura into his body. He pulled out a small knife without any death attribute from his waist. Without any superfluous words, he directly pressed Olivia's body and cut it open. The seemingly perverted murderer's actions completely removed the residual positrons on Olivia's wounds and the program that affected the rules. It was this kind of program that affected the foundation of matter that caused the wounds to be unable to heal. Although the idealistic belief that involved the forbidden doctrine might be able to forcefully cover the effects of the program and achieve instant recovery. However, it would bring great side effects to Olivia. If she was caught by the mother machine, she would still die. Buzz. Holy light spread out in the wounds, but the healing speed was not as fast as expected. The flesh was slowly growing back. Alex immediately showed a somewhat disgusted expression. The recovery speed is actually so slow. Staying in the church all year round and participating in too many meetings has caused your ability to degenerate? You were not at this level before. If not for Olivia's extremely good temper, she would have been angry. The opponent's territory can directly affect the mind and implant programs similar to mandatory command. The programs implanted in me include no escape, no holy light, no defense. However, these programs can be resisted through my own willpower, territory, or related abilities to reduce the effects of the programs. Due to the difference in level, I can't completely eliminate the effect. Well, is there any other information? Olivia explained the relevant information as briefly as possible, especially the mechanical control point. It was the first time Alex had encountered this type of enemy. It can actually completely copy the Wu King's attributes into the body of the mechanical life under its command without any reduction in ability. The only price is that it will cause an extremely high body load to be controlled. After a period of control, it will self-destruct. I have never seen such an ability before. No wonder the killing just now felt so strange. Death instinct did not stop at the surface of the wreckage, but pursued it outside the city. After saying that, Alex looked outside the city. It was the opposite direction from when he entered the city. It was the Markmas city that had tricked him and Malone. Is the real body there? It had already been 2 minutes since I killed the target, but there were no controlled machines coming to me. It seemed like they didn't intend to waste any time on me. The other party's goal is clear: to damage the foundations of London and cause us to lose our sanctuary. This way, even if they are defeated, they can leave the world through a special passage. But we don't have the protection of the entire city, so it's difficult for us to cross planes. In the end, we will be left behind with the world. What a troublesome opponent. Olivia, can you find a place to hide? I have to go now. He did not wait for Olivia to respond. Whoosh! The silver sickle slashed out. He wasn't trying to kill the enemy. Instead, he was trying to open up a path to the death plane. Apart from Alex, anyone who dared to enter this plane would quickly die. Of course, a few individuals who possessed the same attribute of death might be able to enter. The interior corresponded to the City of London with a black and white background. Individuals who died in the war, regardless of whether they were allies or enemies, floated above their corpses in the form of ghosts. Death Plane, London. This area wasn't set up temporarily by Alex. As early as 4 months ago, Alex came to London and obtained a certain level of human authority. Every day, he covered himself with a cloak and walked through the streets of London, burying death coordinates in many corners. During this period, he was accidentally seen through by the eyes of the fifth origin, Eugene. Naturally, he was scared out of his wits. In subsequent meetings, when the great demon leader proposed the overall battle plan, he also included the establishment of the Death Plane and obtained his mother's permission. This was the complete realization of the Death Plane. All the souls of the defeated in London would be affected by the plane and would be dealt with by Alex. It was important to note that the essence of the plane was death. It was impossible to resurrect the dead. However, Alex could completely erase the souls of the enemy's dead. Once the souls were erased, no matter what resurrection spell was used in the real world, they could not be resurrected. The most important point was, Alex could use all the dead as coordinates and quickly travel through the death plane. When he first slashed the machinery controlled by the mother, the surface of the sickle was also stained with a wisp of vitality that belonged to the mother. Like a marked prey, as long as the mother appeared in London, Alex could easily locate it in the death plane. West side of London. A dark secret word in a liquid robot was searching for traces of hybrid demons in a completely dark guest room. Its body was suddenly entangled by a kind of sucker tentacle that could bind Liquid. The dark residents hiding here could reveal their true form and drive the pollution array set up under their feet. Black spots that symbolized pollution appeared on the surface of the Liquid robot, and it could be completely corroded within a minute. Who knew? The feeling that the robot gave people suddenly changed. Buzz. Red laser beams shot out from the mechanical eyes. As the neck turned, it instantly swept 360 degrees. Not only were the surrounding hybrid demons killed, but the entire in-building was smoothly cut open. It was just as Alex had guessed. The mother had no intention of fighting with him at all. After the human residential area on the east side was killed, it immediately controlled the machinery in the west side of the city and quickly massacred the city. Liquid type, the program in the body has been compiled into a prototype of a mythical creature. Quite a good body. The mother finished controlling and was about to leave. An aura of death that made her heart palpitate came from behind her. The strange thing was that the program field that the mother spread out didn't analyze any space fluctuations. She couldn't understand how the other party caught up so quickly. What's going on? When the mother turned around, a terrifying scene that exceeded her information database was displayed. The hybrid demon's body that had just been cut in half by the laser was suddenly torn from the back. Shrouded in a cloak, the Grim Reaper holding a silver scythe drilled out of the wound. It was really like the Grim Reaper in the myths that announced the end of life. No matter where one fled to, one couldn't escape. The mother didn't have time to condense an energy beam in her palm. The scythe had already slashed through her body. This slash was different from the one that destroyed the building just now. It didn't break anything but only gently slashed through her soul. Die. A second later, only the metal liquid scattered on the ground was left in front of her. The expression under the hood wasn't good at all. As expected of the king. He deliberately didn't launch an attack just now. Instead, he focused on the handling of my attack. Although the scythe faintly touched the body, it was still a long distance away. It must go deeper. The concept created by the scythe cutting through the metal was like Alex was riding a submarine and diving in the metal sea. And in the depths of the sea, there was a perfect woman squatting. Just like that. No matter how the mother changed its position, Alex could quickly lock onto it with the help of the death plane and completely block the mother's movements. However, Alex could only do so much. Once he left and went to Markham's to find the mother's true body, London would definitely be destroyed by the mother during this period. For a time, the battle between the kings of both sides fell into a stalemate. This stalemate accelerated the development of the battle. There seemed to be an uneasy force in Markham's city that was ready to make a move. And outside the city, there seemed to be two forces that had begun to move. Chapter 1392. Markham's City Data Center. The Mother Matrix was using an extremely conservative state to constantly consume the host to deal with death. She never took the initiative to attack. Every time she fought with death, she would focus more on herself to ensure that death's attack would not harm her body through the mind of the host. This way, she could temporarily restrict the opponent and continuously collect information about death. From basic abilities, common attack patterns, and coping habits in different situations, to death's attack characteristics, damage composition, and even integrating the Black Tower's information to deduce death's corresponding world. Correlation, Super World, Special, Divine Atlas. It is suspected to have a deep relationship with Greek gods, Tyrados. To be able to establish a deep connection with the core of this world, it is no wonder that it has such a terrifying attack and death perception. However, without the support of the throne, something is always missing. 70% of the mother's CPU continued to be responsible for Alex's data collection, and the remaining 30% began to set up the real hybrid demon elimination plan. A map of London was projected. This map was detailed to every corner, every street, and the number of every building. At the same time, it also marked the hybrid demon density, darkness coverage, and building characteristics and related attributes in different areas. The source of this information was completely dependent on the vanguard. It was London that couldn't withstand the pressure from the mother's various directions. After abandoning the city wall defense line, the troops that invaded the city of London fully invaded. Such a vanguard wasn't about how many hybrid demons they had to kill, nor was it about invading the core of London. The reason why they were ordered to search all corners and buildings in the form of a small team, instead of a large team, was to collect information. In order to launch a true general attack and send out all the risks to disintegrate the enemy. There was also an unexpected gain. Emperor Slayer, who returned midway, directly stabbed the defenseless London, completely exposing the Mother's Palace hidden deep underground. At present, a small number of teams had gone there and successfully obtained some useful information. In addition, the damage of the vanguard was slightly greater than the weaker hybrid demons, except that they had already investigated. The fundamental reason was that the mythical body was not included in it, except for the masked man, who tried to violate the battle plan and leave the masked incarnation in the original body, sneaking into the vanguard to collect living materials. None of the mythical bodies acted on their own. They were all in the vicinity of the teleportation crystal. There seemed to be a special connection between the main body and the crystal. Their souls were inlaid with a miniature crystal structure. Such exquisite craftsmanship was achieved by the Titan as a blacksmith. Previously, Markham City had detected the arrival of Grim Reaper and Malone. They immediately used the connection between their bodies and the crystal to hide in the underground mine area, quietly waiting for the arrival of the next stage. The two kings who went out have won us too many opportunities. London's basic intelligence has been gathered ahead of time, and the hybrid demon extermination plan has been fully launched. All the information collected so far had been transmitted to the brains of every mythical body. Apart from the city's information, it also included the information on the hybrid demon mythical bodies that they had gathered, allowing them to grasp all opportunities. At the same time, a series of program codes had been implanted into their bodies by the mother in advance. Following the special radio waves from Markham City, the codes were activated by the implantation of the encryption key. This kind of code was not a small program that the Mother spread through the domain during battle. Instead, it was through the precise programming of the mother body, coupled with the open-source program, implanted in the depths of the consciousness by professional instruments, one could reach the root of the individual. It was not as simple as stimulating potential. Instead, a part of the mother body's perception was shared with them through the open-source program. This was not an ordinary perception, but the true king perception of the mother body being crowned as a king. The perception was perfectly integrated into the soul through the open-source program, making it convenient for them to digest and understand. Through the support of the program framework, this group of mythical bodies selected from the four worlds was brought to a higher level. Although it was not to the level of a king, it could allow them to be infinitely close to the king's membrane. Their mastery and use of their own abilities would rise to a higher level. This was the horror of the mother body. It was also the fundamental reason why Black Dragon, Emperor Slayer, and the blacksmith were willing to use the mother body as the main body to launch various combat plans. However, although the code appeared to be very exquisite, it was essentially an external aid. Once it was not used well or due to external interference, there might be a more serious backlash. There was still the last and most important step of stabilization that had not been completed, and this step needed the Titan blacksmith to personally achieve it. However, after Markham City released the extremely penetrating wireless signal, there was no response from the blacksmith. Logically speaking, the steel space forged by the blacksmith to restrict the great demon captain could accept wireless signals. According to the plan, once the hybrid demon elimination plan began, he should appear directly. The mother body immediately sent a more penetrating signal that was located in the steel space. Phone B. Kryman, what are you doing? Hurry up and activate the stabilization device and break through London in one fell swoop. There was still no movement in the steel space, only intermittent signals were barely transmitted back. I am not in a good situation, can't, the mini crystal can play a certain role. Carry out the plan first. After all the mythical bodies enter the city, activate. The mother body was quite surprised. In her observation of this cooperation world, the blacksmith 3 sent by the world of Saint was the king with the highest functionality, high attribute values, and the most stable. Whether it was the construction of Markham City, the construction of various special equipment, or various plans, they were inseparable from the blacksmith. His comprehensive strength was also very strong. In the current one-on-one situation, there was a feeling of being unable to free himself and falling into a bitter battle. Since the blacksmith said that the crystal embedded in the mythical body could play a part of the stabilization effect, they could only omit the last step and forcibly carry out the elimination plan. When the mythical bodies entered the city, the blacksmith would free himself to give them complete stabilization. All troops attack. The teleportation crystal drilled out of the ground and appeared again around London. Mythical bodies with different styles appeared one after another, but their state at this time was completely different from the beginning. Not only that, but there were also a large number of light beams descending near the teleportation crystal. Markham City still retained a large number of special forces. A group of siege troops created by the mother body combined with the resources of the main body and the captured hybrid demons were painstakingly created. They were also known as the Terminator of hybrid demons. At the same time, outside the battlefield area, the station area closest to London, waves of uneasiness were spreading. Chapter 1393. Amber Highway Station, combining the raw materials provided by Herbalin and the technical support given by the robot Goldie, a highly precise and well-hidden telescope was created. It was specially designed for Han Dong and needed to be used together with the magic eye. Such a device allowed Han Dong to observe the specific situation of the battle from the outside without intervening in the war. The moment Emperor Slayer returned, Han Dong was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. As expected, Emperor Slayer, who was trapped in the secret room, didn't struggle at all. He was quietly waiting for an opportunity. Although the design of the device designed by the handsome Jack to trap a king is somewhat unreliable, its function is definitely able to restrict a king. If you want to break it, you have to pay an equivalent price. The separation of the carriage should have been noticed by Emperor Slayer, who seized the opportunity to break it with all his strength. What's more frightening is that Emperor Slayer's obsession with the slash is too pure. While he was restrained, his realm actually improved. The power of his slash just now was much stronger than when he was dealing with us. After thinking about it, Han Dong accepted the situation in front of him. The purpose of Han Dong's trip was to seize control of Herbalin. In the case of the enemy's king, he still achieved his goal and even delayed Emperor Slayer's arrival to the battlefield by a full 30 minutes. Soon, the timely return of Malone and Grim Reaper also made Han Dong breathe a sigh of relief. Han Dong also carefully watched the King Tier battle outside the city. The strength displayed by Malone was completely beyond his expectations. It was extremely terrifying. In addition, there was an extremely important detail that Han Dong observed: the space crystal. Sure enough, the enemy never thought of taking down London in one go. After the enemy's mythical bodies lifted the defense line in London, they still did not make any moves and stayed next to the crystal. When Malone and Grim Reaper arrived, they took the crystal and hid it underground. The purpose of the first group of Suicide Squad to enter the city was to collect information about the inner city. After all, in the eyes of the enemy, London was the nest of the hybrid demons. The king, who controlled the world network, should be able to quickly integrate the information of all the teams and quickly organize detailed information about London. Because of the rebalance principle, the number of kings was equal, and in the end, it would evolve into a situation of mutual restraint. Since the other party didn't seize the plan to attack London before Malone and Death returned, the real decisive power would be on the mythical form and the main force. I estimate that once the two kings enter a stalemate, the other side will definitely launch an all-out attack. Thinking of this, Han Dong hesitated for a long time before making an important decision. Since Han Dong's cranial nerves were connected to Grim and Miss Helen throughout the whole process, they shared the view of the telescope. Grim was amazed by the battle between the kings, especially the strength of the human kings. He was so excited that his whole body trembled, and he didn't want to rush to the battlefield because he was bored. Han Dong turned around and looked at the two of them seriously. Grim, you and Miss Helen will use the open space of the underground mine to sneak back to London from the south. Remember to avoid hostile mythical entities. We must start now, and get back to London before the general attack is made. It's not enough to just be guided by the third prime, Aslan. All 10 of you must be stationed in the city. The other side must have hidden trump cards that we don't know about in this general attack. Once there's a problem with the internal defense, the front line may be compressed to the inner circle in a short time. However, if Grim and Miss Helen return and bring back the information we've collected here, we'll definitely be able to formulate countermeasures. Grim didn't care. After all, there were fights inside and outside the city. Compared to the Emperor Slayer that he had already played, he would rather go to the city and play with other kings. Helen agreed with Han Dong's proposal, and the hundreds of miniature skulls that formed the skull nodded together. Han Dong continued, "When the time is right, I'll join forces with another batch of Black Rivers lurking outside to provide pressure from the outside. See you later." The robot Goldie had quickly built a set of efficient, quiet, and secretive manned drilling machine through the workbench. When the Herbalin Company secretly mined pyrolite, they used this kind of machine. Before leaving, Grim reached out and poked the hole in Goldie's shoulder. If there's any danger, use the same method to call me. Don't die, this stage play can't be without you. Don't worry, I won't die. The drilling machine printed with the Herbalin Company's logo successfully carried the two back to London secretly. Not long after that, it was just as Han Dong had guessed. A situation of mutual restraint gradually formed between the kings, and the war node arrived as scheduled. The mythical bodies of the enemy and the space crystals emerged from the ground. However, it was a little strange. Just through the visual image obtained through the telescope, Han Dong could see the difference. What's going on? The mythical bodies give me a different feeling from before. There's an indescribable sense of danger. However, before he could figure out this matter, another troublesome thing followed. Tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of light beams descended near different space crystals, and the number exceeded Han Dong's expectations. However, the most terrifying thing wasn't the number, but the individual state of the soldiers. Their appearance was different from the known four great worlds, and there was a strange energy mixed in their bodies. At this time, the robot Goldie on the side raised its hands and spun around crazily. Oh, my God! Have these guys been to the secret space? It shouldn't be. The secret had been completely absorbed by the handsome Jack a long time ago. How could it fall into the hands of these guys? It's over. What secret? The real secret hidden in Pandora is different from the pyrolite mine. It's an ultimate treasure that can allow individuals to grow rapidly and give them a super body. Countless treasure hunters have come to Pandora at the cost of their lives to pursue it. Even the production of pyrolite is closely related to the secret. Many scholars even believe that pyrolite is a super-technological substance after ordinary or has been exposed to radiation from the secret. However, there is only one real secret, and it has been obtained by the handsome Jack. Boss, you should have seen Jack's seemingly ordinary attack method can become a powerful attack that can destroy cities and even satellite. This is the power given by the secret, and it's called super body. That's true. Han Dong recalled the scene of the handsome Jack shooting with an ordinary revolver. It looked like an ordinary shot, but once it hit, death was inevitable. Since there is only one secret, these guys shouldn't have gotten a second one, right? Otherwise, the arms company that once ruled Pandora would have gotten it long ago. Besides, although these soldiers do look special, they are far from being as terrifying as Jack. If I were to guess, the other party didn't get the real secret, but the secret remnants collected through science and technology. That is, the excess parts that Jack didn't absorb and even excreted from his body. Then, through existing scientific and technological means, they are copied into the bodies of the mechanical soldiers. Goldie quickly calmed down. The soldiers in the picture were indeed not as exaggerated as obtaining the secret. They only had some light patterns on the surface of their bodies that symbolized the secret. Yes. Otherwise, this battle really won't end. I'm nervous. After all, the day the handsome Jack got the secret, it left a psychological shadow on me. Han Dong's eyes were gloomy. Although it's just some remnants, it can more or less bring about improvement, and even give some new abilities. Letting Green and Miss Helen go back early is a wise choice. This will put a lot of pressure on the inner city. Almost. Let's get ready to go. Chapter 1394. Markham's Metal City. This city gathered the core technology of the Mother's World, and at the same time, it also received the assistance of Blacksmith 3. In addition to the terrifying annihilation weapon of the positron cannon, there was also a set of munitions factories, directly managed by the Mother. Here, the bodies of the people were constantly being manufactured. The corresponding world of the Matrix was a brand new world ruled by machines against humans, but it also used humans to find the ultimate answer. In the Black Tower's archive room, The world was called the Matrix. It was completely different from the metal, machinery, and wasteland style of Pandora. The world of the Mother seemed to be controlled by machines, but its life unit was a program. Machines were just a shell they used to interfere with the physical world. Therefore, from the outbreak of the war until now, the side with the least loss of troops was the Mother. The main purpose of packaging Markham City was not to prevent theft. It was to radiate a program network that covered the entire city of London. A network system that could quickly transfer programs with Markham City as a base station. To some extent, it was similar to the Death Plane, a London created by death. Before the mechanical soldiers were about to die, or when they felt that they were about to be killed, they only needed to abandon the metal shell and return to Markham City through the program network. Then, they could complete the resurrection with the mechanical shell on the production line. Similarly, those machines that were directly controlled by the Mother were essentially a kind of program replacement. The final loss was just the shell that could be produced without limit. This was the true strength of the Mother and its world system. In the production workshop that occupied about 1/4 of Markham City, the entire production system was more responsible than expected. To create a shell that could exert the full power of the program, it was not just a model similar to a figurine. The foundation of these shells was still inseparable from humans. With the human bones that remained active as a framework, combined with the most advanced technological processes, they created cuppable shells that could adapt to different kinds of programs. However, the production workshop also had a special area. The high-quality shells that met the standards were sent here. The high-level program under the Mother's command would implant the secret treasure remnants into this batch of high-quality shells. As the robot Goldie said, there was only one copy of Pandora's secret treasure. When the Mother later found the secret treasure space, there was nothing left. However, after the Mother's program coverage and detailed scan, she discovered a secret room that had already collapsed and was almost swallowed by the shattered space. A secret monster that was once killed by the handsome Jack was buried at the bottom of the secret room. When he brought back monster carcasses and used cutting-edge technology to extract a large amount of secret treasure remnants. Even though the density was far from that of the real secret treasure, the amplification effect it brought was astonishing. Since it was extracted from a monster's body, there were more or less impurities mixed in, and there were corresponding side effects. The dragon descendants and blacksmiths had decent physiques, so they could barely endure it. However, their physical characteristics would also change. It even affected their future development. In the end, they refused to accept the remnants of the secret trove. Only the program group under the Mother could avoid the negative effects of the secret treasure after the war through formatting. Therefore, the remnants of the secret treasure only used mechanical troop. The name of the project was finalized as Terminator of Hybrid Demons. A brand new production line was built, and the most advanced management program was jointly responsible for the project with the Mother body. Batches of mechanical shells labeled as super machines were smoothly produced, quietly waiting for the war to begin. All troops attack. At this moment, a group of combat machines in the city self-destructed. Thousands of small mushroom clouds with electric light flashing rose in the city of London. Many important hybrid demon buildings and dark areas were blown up. The program returned, and all the programs left in Markham City were implanted into the super machines, according to their own equipment. The image of the super machines was similar to the skeletal frame machines in Terminator. This image was due to the erosion of the shell by the remnants of the secret trove. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A beam of light descended. A group of more than 100,000 Terminator troops instantly assembled outside the city. Led by 11 mythical bodies, the masker was dead, so there were originally 12, they launched a general attack on the city of London. At the same time, The mother body also reported the information of the general attack to the vanguard troops fighting in the city through the program network. Whether it was through the breath of sin, searching for the target's sinful spirit, or burning the dark dragon descendants with dragon breath, or the blacksmiths who had fought against the hybrid demons in advance gathered at the city gate. When the time came, they would integrate into the main force and use the detailed information compiled by the mother body to flatten the area. In the city of London, more than 10 minutes ago, Grimm and Helen had successfully returned on the drilling machine. As soon as he got off the car, Grimm ordered Helen beside him, "Go and report the information collected by Nicholas to the priest, and then wait for me at the Ice Mountain." Ice Mountain? Aslan's place? Yeah, didn't he do something called joint operations before? I'm suddenly interested in this kind of boring plan. When you get there, ask him to wait for a while. Oh, okay. Grimm shuttled through the streets as fast as he could, killing a few intruders along the way. He followed a hidden street and arrived at the area of Han Dong's manor. As the manor only had a secret entrance and exit, and at the same time, it was guarded by a mythical dragon, no enemy troops had invaded this place. Sally Hope, come here quickly, you two go directly to the Ice Mountain. Sally, the black goat who was crowned as the mistress, when she saw Grimm coming back alone, her eyes were a little wet. She even put aside her fear of Grimm and hurried forward to ask, "Where's Nicholas? Where is he? What are you worried about? Since I'm still alive, how can I let him die? That kid is outside the city, and he has a pretty good local army in his hands. Later, he will cooperate with us to act in an epic stage play." That's good. Sally calmed down after knowing that Han Dong was fine. Go to Aslan's place now? What about Nicholas Manor? Since I've returned to the city, this crazy dragon can be my abyss portal at any time. If there's any problem with the manor, I'll know. Don't talk nonsense, let's go quickly. Okay. Sally stepped on the goat's hooves and rushed to the Ice Mountain with Hope. She couldn't help but look back at Grimm. She didn't know if it was her illusion, although the crazy aura around Grimm became denser. The feeling that Grimm gave her was a little different, as if it was easier to talk to him. Grimm didn't stay in the manor for too long, whistling as he rushed to the British Library. Really, battle plans and whatnot are not suitable for me, but thinking about the upcoming war, it's quite interesting. Clang. He kicked the library's door, his hands spread to the side of his mouth, and shouted loudly, "Pope, you haven't left the city yet, right? Hyde should also be here with you. I can smell the stinky fishy smell across the street. Do you want to cooperate with me again? I have some very explosive information here. Maybe London will really fall. If you want to know, immediately go to Aslan's Ice Mountain. We haven't gotten together for a long time. Also, call Vader on the surface of the celestial body. Don't miss out." Grimm turned around and left after finishing his report, whistling as he went to the last area. It was a ward that Han Dong had applied for special patients. A filthy and evil substance had already spread outside the ward. Creak. Grimm pushed open the door. In the corner, a sutured youth who was drawing circles on the wall while hanging himself turned his head and asked with an expectant face, "Brother Grimm, are you here to kill me? I'm taking you to participate in an operation with a high mortality rate. Come on, kid." Okay. Chapter 1395. Ice Mountain Demon Palace. Long hair of ice flames floated in the air. Wearing a slim white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, his small eyes were staring at a custom-made chessboard. I didn't expect that this group of humans could really restrain the opponent's king. No wonder such a human army could get permission from the Void and participate in this game with almost equal status with us. Thinking about it, these few must be the top existences carefully selected by the human world. This game is also related to the issue of their sovereignty in the future. The stalemate between the kings has been formed, and it's finally my turn to make a move. Because of Aslan's identity as the speaker, he had already obtained the command power during the Origin Conference and had the right to mobilize the forces behind the other Origins, except for Grimm and Pope. From the outbreak of the war until now, he had been hiding in the Ice Mountain. He was waiting for this opportunity to avoid the king-level threat, so that his contribution in the London game could be highlighted to the greatest extent. Moreover, the best news was that Grimm had followed the Evernight Bishop to perform a special mission outside the city. When the time came, he would launch a pincer attack on the enemy from outside the city, so it wouldn't affect his battle plan in the city. Eugenius, are you ready? The green-haired Eugenius was polishing the stone spear. Groups of bubble-like eyes kept appearing and disappearing on his forehead. It seemed that he was communicating with the stone spear through a special way. Yes. When do you plan to use your group of Shugas? This is a terrifying army that the enemy can't adapt to in a short time. The use of Meat Mountain and Shugas is up to me. This is the agreement we reached in advance, right? Aslan narrowed his eyes and looked over. Yes, I believe in your personal judgment, Eugenius. After all, you have a heavy burden on your shoulders. For a race like you who doesn't have the support of a real old king and is divided in the South Pole because of limited reproduction, all the pressure is concentrated on you, the Origin. If you want to get out of this predicament, your performance in this game must be outstanding enough. Maybe you can clear the name of your Shugas in advance, and even win the throne in advance. TSK Eugenius didn't respond. He slowly put the stone spear back into the sarcophagus and carried it on his back. Although he was dissatisfied with Aslan, what he said just now was not wrong. This game was too important for Han Dong. He needed to use some external forces to highlight his contribution in the game. The way to obtain Han Dong's body was almost completely blocked. Aslan rotated the magic stone in her palm and was about to enter the battle. The familiar fragrance of flowers and plants accompanied by an artistic conception that could calm one's mind arrived. Helen panted as she rushed to the entrance of the iceberg cave. Helen, why are you here? I received a message saying that you, Grimm, and that young bishop formed a team and headed out of the city together. Helen's appearance caused Aslan to become uneasy, so much so that he could faintly smell a trace of madness from Helen's body. There's been a change in the situation. Grimm asked me to come here in advance. All of the Origin substance should be gathering here. As soon as he finished speaking, a void gate that was stable and unrestricted by the domain opened within the demon's Denver. It was a fishy smell unique to the deep sea. It surpassed the high-energy reaction of everyone present, and an irresistible thought that came together. First, a huge mermaid's foot stepped out. Wet, dark blue hair hung down on both sides of the gill-like cheeks. The long face in the shape of a crescent moon matched with the huge mermaid's physique. It was extremely oppressive. Supreme Honorable One, Hyde Darius. The young man with a hole in his chest and a rotating red planet inside followed closely behind. His eyes were flickering with uneasiness. King Star, Vader Cousins, had a special mission in this battle. Finally, Pope with a starry head also walked out. His gaze stopped on Helen. Grimm hasn't arrived yet? Helen, you should know the specific situation. Just say it. Helen was just about to explain herself when she heard Zhang Xian's words. A heavy black goat's hoof stepped into the iceberg. It even caused the entire iceberg to shake slightly. At the same time, there was another young man with a physique even more exaggerated than Hyde Darius. He bent down slightly and squeezed into the iceberg. Black Goat Sally and Hominid Hope had arrived. Sally interrupted the ongoing conversation. It should be a very important matter. I've never seen Grimm gather all of us on his own accord. Let's wait for him to arrive first. Just as she finished speaking, everyone present, including Bop, felt their hearts tighten. Many parts of their bodies contracted unnaturally. Crazy voice came from outside the cave. Sally, I didn't expect you to understand me so well. It's a pity that Nicholas is very interested in you. Otherwise, I'd really like to try and see what kind of quality our offspring can achieve. Since everyone is here, Helen will be in charge of explaining the situation. I hope that everyone can work together at this time. The enemy this time is very interesting. Maybe some of us will die on the battlefield. When Grimm said this, Kit Lanier, who had the title of Evil Devil Root, immediately revealed a yearning and excited look. The air became polluted. Just as Helen finished explaining the enemy's information observed from the outside. Why? The mythical celestial body above the city sounded a danger alarm. King's star, Vader projected the scene outside the city from the celestial body in front of everyone's eyes through the connection between the stars. Pope, who was beside him, immediately put a hand on Vader's shoulder to obtain more direct information. Such an observation made Pope sweat profusely. There were even unstable meteors streaking across his transparent, galaxy-like brain. There's something wrong with the mythical body next to the teleportation crystal. It's not just the change in aura and strength. The overall level seems to have been forcefully raised by a method that I can't understand. It's close to the king. Moreover, the soldiers that are continuously descending are mixed with a very strange energy. The number has exceeded 100,000 and is still increasing. The vanguard troops that are active in the city have also begun to gather at the city gate area. Grimm, who saw such a tense scene, kept licking his face with his tongue. Nicholas guessed it right. The pressure in the inner city is not ordinary. Forcefully raising the mythical body's level? So strong. Immediately, Grimm turned his gaze to the ice flame youth. Aslan, assign the corresponding forces behind everyone to different areas for defense. Otherwise, it'll be really dangerous. Father Lessos and the remaining human troops could each block one or two of the attack points. The remaining gaps will be filled by us. With the 10 of us working together, it shouldn't be too much of a problem to deal with mythical bodies that are close to the king, right? I'm really looking forward to it. It was very strange. Including Pope, it was the first time they saw Grimm personally arrange a battle strategy. The madman who used to act alone and did not do things according to common sense had undergone a great change for some reason. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.